experts from the opposition. Speaker Moses Wetangula stated there are still more negotiations between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. Larsen Committee will take charge of the budget policy statement until a new budget committee is formed.
That consultations are ongoing and will be concluded soon to allow for the reconstitution of the specified committees. I direct that awaiting the reconstitution of committees, the BPS be processed by the liaison committee.
And you will see one team working together. Tuona kamati zingine zikiwa chaired na ODM, zingine ni UDA, zingine ni anybody mwenye amekuja serikali, zingine ni Jubilee. We want all of them to become one team and contribute in parliament in moving our country forward.
Senate Majority Leader Aaron Cheriot, on his part, noted that if you no longer support government policy out there, surely wouldn't I be stupid to expect that when I give you a chance to chair those committees, you will not do the opposite? End of quote. Other Gachagua allies on the chopping board include Embakasi North MP James Gakuya, who is currently chairing the Trade, Investment and Cooperatives Committee, Kipipiri legislator Wanjiku Muhia, who chairs the Regional Integration Committee, and Runyenje's lawmaker Eric Karemba, who occupies the Labour Committee. The Azimio side is likely going to take over their seats, including the Health Committee chaired by Ndebes MP Robert Pukose, in a give and take deal entered into a State House meeting on Monday.
If you no longer support government policy out there, you don't agree with it, surely wouldn't I be stupid to expect that when I give you the opportunity to chair a certain committee and help legislate, that you will do the opposite? You'll try and find ways of making sure that that law doesn't see the light of the day. So we are just giving people an opportunity to live within the political realities and the choices that they've made.
Wapigaji kura ni maseneta wenyewe, wanaweza kuamua, lakini kwa sababu ya uhusiano ule ambao uko hivi sasa, tumesema katika hizi kamati wale watakaochaguliwa kama wenyekiti watakuwa ni maseneta kutoka mlingo wa Azimio.
And Deputy President Kithure Kindiki has once again told off Kenyans who vowed to ensure that his boss, President William Ruto, becomes a one-term president. Kindiki, who was speaking at his official residence in Karen, maintained that their main objective is not to get re-elected.
The issue is not how long I will stay in this office. That's the least of my worries. The same for President Ruto. Haona watu wengine wanamtisha, sijui atakuwa sijui term moja, sijui term ngapi. Does it really matter? It doesn't matter how long you stay in office. What matters is what you do while in office. Yeah. So wale wanategea sisi hapo, they are just wasting their time. Should look for other things to do.
He further praised Kenya Kwanza's performance, saying President Ruto has steered the country to economic recovery.
For the last 2 years, President Ruto has worked extremely hard to turn around the fundamentals of macroeconomic stability, in the sense that the broad economic variables that influence the cost of living, which were going haywire, are moderated today and they are under control.
That's the Newswire. I'm Le Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Are you a young person looking to unlock your potential? Are you ready to take the future in your hands? If so, then listen up. KCB to Jejiri is the plan. It's designed to empower young people like you, develop skills and knowledge you need to succeed in life. KCB to Jejiri combines vocational skills training, business development training, access to finance and business mentorship, preparing youth for jobs, entrepreneurship and wealth creation. Don't be left out. Visit kcbgroup.com/foundation to learn more.
Some days just have you feeling, you know the ones. Very few aha moments. Just moments. Maybe even a few Because how can a day this good feel so meh? But then, you realize your moment of escape is a cup of indulgence away. Delamere.
Get lost in rich, creamy, flavorful bliss with every spoonful of Delamere real fruit yogurt. Indulge in the moment.
Medical emergencies don't wait for payday. So why should you? Picture this. You or a loved one falls sick. The hospital bill, sky high. The stress, overwhelming. But with Jubilee Health Insurance, you don't have to panic. Affordable health covers from just 200 shillings per month. Lipa pole pole. Get covered now. Pay in easy installments. Access to over 800 hospitals plus telemedicine and free drug delivery. SMS Health to 40643. Call 0709 949 000 or visit www.jubileeinsurance.com. Jubilee Health Insurance. Your health, your peace of mind. Running a business in Kenya and struggling with slow, expensive cross-border payments? With Verto, you can send and receive money globally, faster, cheaper, and hassle-free. Pay suppliers, collect payments, and expand internationally with ease. 49 currencies, 190 plus countries. One powerful platform. Better rates, faster settlements, secure transactions. Global payments made easy. Sign up today at www.vertofx.com. Verto, your global business payments partner.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Good morning. It's 8 after 6 and it's already the 19th of February and here we are getting into it. Boom, boom, boom. Seatbelts on. Let's go. Good morning. Siti, good morning.
Good morning.
Mambo vipi?
Fiti.
Fiti kabisa?
Yes.
Wewe umeniletea vitu leo asubuhi. Leo nimeamua nitaanza na Kiswahili. Unaonaje?
Kwa jambo la maana sana.
Si ndio? Mimi nimeona kama hii Kiswahili nimeshika vizuri.
Hii Kiswahili imeshika wewe?
Nimeishika vizuri.
Okay, sawa sawa.
Unaona kama ninajaribu sana, si ndio?
Awacha hivyo jamani, hata sio kujaribu. Umeshika kabisa.
Kabisa, thank you very much. Next language, next bus stop, Kisi. Kisi language, mimi.
Don't worry.
Wakire.
That's very good.
Thanks. Hata nimepewa thumbs up.
You've done very well.
Thank you very much. After that, we'll tell you the next. But for now, Kiswahili followed by Kisi, then we'll finish the K's. Then we'll move. Bas. Hata nimeambia wengine sahi hata sielewi ni nini like. Oya ore City. Oya ore Dorice.
Oya ore ni chona dendu.
Chio maber.
Bas. Sawa.
It's chona dendu.
Chio maber.
Machiegni.
Very good.
Come on. You see this language is this thing.
You've tried, huh? You tried at this rate. There are many languages in this country.
I'm telling you, so far I speak well 6 languages. Very well.
Very well.
Yes. So I'm aiming. I'm still young. I'm aiming for 10. If I continue like this, I'll try a bit.
Okay. Siti, how many languages do you speak?
3.
Kiswahili?
The Luo and English.
Okay. Sawa.
Dorice, good morning.
It is just now you have
No,
remembered.
you know, we were just flowing. We had just entered and just continued. Then I remembered, it's only goat. Let me tell you, there's a proverb for everything. As we remember, then I remembered, it is only goat that gets up in the morning and just goes. Do you understand?
I'm trying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Human beings, we must at least have
a brain.
to greet people. Surely.
That's a human being interpreting goat behavior.
Goat just stands up and continues eating as if it didn't.
Wait, goat and sheep, which one is more foolish?
God.
None of them is actually foolish.
They say sheep follow each other. They do not really think.
Yeah, that's the human beings interpreting good sheep behavior. I'd like to understand how sheep and goat understand our behavior.
My behavior.
No,
our human behavior.
Yes.
Oh, yes. But anyway, I'd like to say how to say hello in your language.
My language?
Yes.
Okay. So when you wake up in the morning, when I wake up for morning, I thank God for life. There's a song for everything, I'm telling you. But Kedu is Igbo. So Kedu, then if
What
you
does
are
Kedu
fine,
mean?
Kedu is how are you? How are things?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And the morning has broken?
Ututu Oma. Ututu is morning. Oma is a beautiful thing. So I say a beautiful morning to you, Ututu Oma.
Ututu Oma.
Ututu Oma.
Ututu Oma.
Exactly. Now, if you're from the southern parts of Igbo land, you say Ututu or Tutu. Anyway, Oma. So good morning to you, Kedu. Then if you're fine, you say Odimma. Remember I told you ma is a good thing.
Yeah.
So when you say Odimma, I am well, I am good. Do you understand?
If you're not fine.
It's interesting because greetings in language doesn't give you the option really of saying how you're doing badly.
Right?
Especially our African languages. If you think about it, it's rare that when you greet somebody, you say, I'm not doing well.
People hardly respond that way anyway.
People hardly respond with that I'm
the negative.
Exactly.
Yeah. And actually this morning, we don't want to start with that. We want you to feel good and have fun. So welcome to all those who are watching through our KTN channels. This is where you get to start your day. And I appreciate Ndu and CT this morning.
Karibuni sana, everybody. Getting into the show for today. Kenya's biggest conversations starts now. It's going to be a good, fun ride, so seatbelts up. Let's tell you about some of the conversations that we shall be having this morning, and then we'll say a hello to you as we get into it this morning, shall we? All right, so conversations today will span a number of things, and let's see how this all starts from 7 a.m. this morning. We will have a conversation around about what is going on concerning the rule of law, forced disappearances and unlawful detention, a Ugandan case study. Martin Mavenjina is a senior program officer with the Transitional Justice Kenya Human Rights Commission, and he'll join us at 7 a.m. We'll look at a number of things. Top of that is what's making the headlines in the story today, rather in the papers today, about abductions, in Uganda and what's going on with that. So that conversation comes in at 7. And then at 8 o'clock, CT has been telling us about mortgages with DTB, how you can get those, what you can do, what is fixed and what is not. The good folks at DTB, in the person of Eva Awino, who is the head of mortgages, will join us and we'll have that conversation with her. Finally, Tito Alai is a Pan-Africanist and he'll join us at 9 o'clock and we'll be talking about solving Africa's trust crisis. Seems to be a big one. And we'll look at that. Inter-African and then intra-African. That trust crisis is a major issue. And so Tito Alai joins us at 9. So those are the conversations that we'll be having this morning. And always, as you click in and join us on those, it's always a pleasure to have you. And speaking of that, how about we say good morning to you and welcome folks who have gotten onto our live streams, which, by the way, are on Facebook, are on YouTube, and are on X. So just saying a big hello to you this morning, and we start. Good morning, says, okay, everybody and their uncle are here, so it's great to have everybody here this morning. The noisemakers came back quietly, says Don Sabwa, like the water in a pot. Ndu, ask CT. CT, I'm asking you. How much estimated Kenyan tax was spent used to put Djibouti in the chair? Chair in Malawi, we say Mpando. Do you know the answer?
No, I actually do not know the answer.
But at least I've done what they said I should do. They said I should ask you. I've asked you.
It's good you have asked, but I do not know.
Okay. Don Sabo City doesn't know. But, we're here. Okay. All right. Getting through to everybody else. King Dave Lubale is greeting us and says, good morning, great ones. Robertson Bogo says, good morning. Leo says, hello, Princess Ndu, CT, and Dorice. If I call you the name that he said I should call you, you'll not be happy. And we don't want people to not be happy this morning.
Must be Leo, is it?
Yes, Leo.
Okay.
The genius that advises this administration deserves a Nobel Prize for brilliant idea of spying on citizenry using money wallets to determine Shah. Okay, so we've heard you. Bwangi James says, good morning, guys. Tune in from Bonnie Lake in Washington. Joe Mungai says, Raila so loved Kenya that he gave his only son to the East Africa Assembly, and now he's giving his only brother a leadership position in Senate. Ololo. Okay. Abed Abdallah says, good morning.
That is not the only brother he has.
Yeah, why are you rushing through that comment? It's very interesting, that one.
We don't have time now, Abed.
Okay.
Greet people and then we keep
very
it moving.
Smart dude.
Anne Gore, Chamge, my beautiful people. Chamge, and good morning to you. R says, Mpo. Then you answer?
Tupo.
Thanks. Good morning, Spice. We shall revisit. We shall have our day of celebration. CT, what's the meaning of these phrases?
Mm-hmm.
Which ones?
We shall revisit and we shall have our day of celebration.
I think they're self-explanatory, don't you?
Sindio?
Yes.
Okay. We shall come back to it.
Okay.
Essentially. Okay. Good morning, guys, says Erica War. Stanley Ngashe. Hey, Stanley, it's been a minute. Where have you been? Good to have you back in the room this morning. Hassan Hamis says, good morning. Tuned in from KSA. You guys always make my day. Do you look beautiful? God, thank you so much. My day is done. It's finished. In fact, see, let the world end. It's just coming tomorrow. It's finished. Bwakire. Buya Ndu, I'm ready to be your Gusi language teacher, says Agri Momanyi. Thanks. Edna is also here, you guys. And she's just telling me nice things. Good morning, Ndu City and Dorice. I have a question for City. Always people asking City questions this morning. What's going on?
And now this time, answer.
When Amina Mohammed failed to clinch her AUC seat, why didn't the former president and his members not threaten people around the country?
Okay.
Threaten?
Well, no, the presumption is that people have been threatened around the country this time round. Have they?
I don't know.
That's what we're trying to figure out.
I don't know.
Maybe the person who has alluded to those threats could tell us when it is that those threats were uttered.
Okay. So now, in order for your question to be answered, you need to answer that question. Habari za asubuhi, Wakire, everybody, uchio nade.
Yes.
Kama duto.
It's how have you woken up this morning?
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, Sawa.
Thank you, all of you.
Yes.
My take, good morning, we see you. Husband Sidon says good morning. Brian Rono says, in my language you say chamge, and the response is missing. Loosely translates to love yourself. Response very much indeed. Otutuoma, everybody says Zachary. Nduke Duke Duodima. Bernardito says good morning. A very chilly morning here in Doha. And now when the Dohaians say it's chilly, it's like 25 degrees. Good morning, Team Spice. No negativity in African greetings. That's true if you think about it. Rarely do you hear that. Good morning. All Giorgio Koth is tuned in now. Apenda sana santi sana. Ni hao, freezing from Shanghai. Love listening to Spice. Thank you always for tuning in every morning. Patrick Koske is greeting us as well. The chef says good morning, good people. Mbakasi Tukoloked. Abdi Noor says good morning, and Simangele is also tuned in this morning from South Africa. Good morning. Robert Abur says good morning. SpiceFM, a trusted source of unparalleled, in-depth coverage of issues affecting Kenyans. Congratulations. Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you.
And he's tuning in from Dallas in Texas. Sakina Kezar says good morning, everybody. And Georgia Dimo is listening in from Rongo and says the weather is okay. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in this morning.
My cousin said good morning. They allowed me to say good morning. Husband Sidon.
Husband Sidon is your cousin?
Yeah, that's my cousin.
Are you sure it's your cousin?
That's
because
my cousin. That's like cousin. Good morning.
Cuz.
Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. Ja Chicago.
Baba Remy, one of the cutest babies on earth at the moment. His father is greeting us this morning. Jeffrey Mogaka, he's watching. And
beautiful.
Thank you so much for tuning in every morning. We are going to hear today's proverb, but let me tell you, it's time to take a slight break. Let me just remind you that Delamere has this fantastic yogurt. Look at it. Strawberry, wild berries, lemon and biscuit. It's the perfect breakfast on the go, or your perfect snack, your perfect snack when you're taking a break after a workout, when you're taking a work break, when you're taking a study break. It's the moments that you can have with Delamere yogurt, and I invite you to have a moment with us today as we look into today's proverb from Niger.
Only God can chase away flies from a tailless cow.
I see two things.
You see two things?
Yeah.
Right?
So, that one, there is protection and provision for those who don't have the tools to get through life.
Right.
Somehow you'll be taken care of. And on the other side is that God, the divine, will always provide something that you need. When you look at the tail of the cow, it does that. Chase away. So you will be given something that you need to get through. And in the event that you don't have it, God will provide.
Human beings are strange, aren't we? We use that till and we call it a fly whisk.
Oh, yeah, we do. Especially the Luo community. A lot of African communities.
I assure you.
It's around Africa.
Africans. Africans. It's Europeans who don't have fly whisks.
Well, I think my interpretation would be that, as I just drew it from the scripture, with God, everything is possible. You might not have a tail, but circumstances around you can be handled through Him. Somewhat. He will find a way around it and get those flies out of your way.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. And that's it. Okay, so let's take a look at the headline, shall we? But you know what? Yesterday we had a great conversation with the good people from Virtuo FX, and really looking at how you can ramp up African business. So businesses today have an opportunity to be able to, make payments, transactional seamlessness, not these crazy unaffordable fees, no hidden charges. Downtime has been reduced significantly, all on the Virtuo platform. So businesses from small to medium to large corporate organizations are able to make and keep their payments seamless around 190 countries on this globe, as well as in 49 different currencies. Whatever it is that you need to do, wherever it is that you need to go, however it is that you need to do business, get on the Virtuo platform today, www.virtuofx.com, and continue with seamless business transactions. We're looking into the papers today, and let's take a look at Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard. On the front page, it's a picture that we've seen for the last few days, and it's a picture of what is close to an emaciated Kizza Besigye. And the headline here is Betrayed by Kenya. Dr. Kizza Besigye has been in the liberation struggle for decades, and he's paid the price for his beliefs. Abducted in Kenya's Riverside estate and detained in Uganda, he lies in a terrorist cell in the throes of death as his health deteriorates with every passing minute. Fingers are now being pointed at the Ruto government to take responsibility, with protests planned for Friday. We'll look into the details of those at a glance, and Franklin Mukwanja, who's a director for the Center for Multi-Party Democracy, says the people who made his arrest and detention possible should take full responsibility because they are directly complicit in the abuse of his rights and fundamental freedoms. We'll look into the details of this story. It also forms part of our conversation at 7 a.m. Sudan rebels to name civilian government, another one which people are already calling a diplomatic faux pas on the part of Kenya and its foreign policy. Again, we'll look into those details. The trust crisis, that probably also will form part of our discussion with Tito Alai at 9. Broke, cash circulation drops by 10 billion shillings. That's why you're broke. There's no money running around. There's no money circulating. This is what we are being told. Committee intrigues as heads roll. There was a delay in naming Parliament's leadership after a late agreement between Ruto and Raila. Let's see what that means. Hustlers to get SHIF loans. Allah? SHIF has money. The Ministry of Health has said it will give out loans to those unable to pay for health insurance so that they can enjoy services. So I guess what this means is that you can get a loan to pay your premiums and you can go to hospital and not pay.
Interesting.
Bit of a tailspin for me, but okay. US, Russia meet with no Ukraine. As per, Ukraine was not there. Yep, so those are the headlines on the Standard today. Let's take a look at what's happening with the nation.
The front page of the Daily Nation, at the heart of it, right at the center, playing with fire. Diplomacy is taking center stage. Warring group accused of massacres has been sanctioned by the United States. And there you're seeing also the image of President William Ruto when he held talks with the Sudan's Rapid Support Forces leader, General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, at State House in Nairobi on January 3rd last year. But dangerous territory, Kenya's credentials as a regional arbiter and peacemaker could be eroded as one of the Sudanese fighting factions, the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces RSF, prepares to launch a parallel government in Nairobi on Friday. President William Ruto has previously rolled out the red carpet for the group's leader, General Mohammed Hamdan Hemdeti, who is Dagalo, angering the junta in Khartoum. All right. page 4 and 5. It's getting even more and more interesting in as far as our international relations are concerned within the region. And Prime Minister talk, Raila keeps Kenya guessing on his next move. Opposition leader Raila Odinga has declined to be drawn into discussion on constitutional amendment to appoint him Prime Minister, even as his loss in the race for the African Union Commission AUC chairmanship raised the prospects of his return to active local politics. More of that on page 7. In fact, we're waiting to see the twists and turns. He's yet to speak on that matter as well. And on matter security, fake ID card, Shabab suspects and abduction bid on foreign workers is also just being captured on this. So security matters in as far as the fake ID cards is now raising that concern. Revealed cost of keeping a student in secondary school for a day. Remember yesterday we looked at that possible increase in as far as fees are concerned. So you could look at that as well in as far as keeping a student in secondary school for a day would cost you. Man gets 150 years in jail for strangling his 3 children. Who does that?
Who gets 50 years or who strangles his children? I guess you
who strangles his children? Okay, who strangles his children? I have to be specific. So he gets 150 years in jail for strangling his 3 children. All right, that's it for the Daily Nation. We'll take a look at it deeper and at length later on.
We are looking at the Star. Now, let's look at the Business Daily. Did you know that Kenyan women have turned to jaw wiring in order to lose weight? Jaw wiring, meaning...
So you just leave a little opening for a straw or something.
Yeah. That one.
Yeah.
Right. Isn't life strange?
I'm telling you.
Yes,
when did that start?
It's been around the block, my sister.
It's been around for some time.
Okay.
This is still on live page 19 of the Business Daily. Why the big 3 credit rating agencies come under criticism by President William Ruto. This is Intelligence, an article by Nderitu Mureithi. Ministries hit by exit of 9,000 staff. Now, the number of civil servants on permanent and pensionable terms has dropped nearly 9,000 in the first 2 years of President William Ruto's administration. Okay, security, education, health win in 86 billion budget boost. Allocations to education, security and healthcare have been increased even as water, housing and energy were subjected to a cut in spending adjustments that have expanded the budget size from the current financial year by 85 billion shillings. Yes, just in case you didn't know also, people who have also received a boost are the office of the chief minister, that's what I'm going to call him, Musalia Mudavadi.
Oh, that is the Prime Secretary, Minister, Cabinet.
Chief Minister.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the office of the Deputy President, they have also received a boost. Their budget, 5 billion.
Nice.
Since we talk about boost, I thought I would just mention that one, 5 billion. Yes, for this and this. But this is, of course, amidst austerity measures.
Of course.
Okay?
We're cutting our cloth on this side, but this other side we're spending money.
That's right. Yeah. That is austerity measures.
It's proper.
Okay. New Holland seeks deal for Kenya stay. Farm equipment maker New Holland is in talks for a new distributor to strengthen its presence in Kenya as its local distributor, CMC Motors, gradually exits. CMC Motors has gone away. Okay. Former Cusco officials in the dock. There are 5 individuals who are in the dock, and they are before Senior Principal Magistrate Dolphina Alego yesterday over charges relating to the alleged theft of 82 million shillings belonging to Kenya Union of Savings and Credit Cooperatives, Cusco. Okay? They are in the dock. There are 2 ladies and 3 gentlemen.
Yes.
Kindiki, okay, I'm reading my own things here, definitely. Let me get it in order. State House, Kindiki office gets extra 5 billion for pay travel. State House and the offices of Deputy President Kindiki and Private Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi have been allocated an extra 5 billion for salaries, travel and entertainment.
Where do they want to go?
Austerity in government.
Where do they want to go?
Where entertainment. Very nice. Very, very necessary.
Okay,
right.
Don't worry.
Banks fight KRA link amidst customer data leak worries. A quiet change in law in December. These omnibus laws where you're told this is what you're dealing with. Before you know it, boom. something else has crept in. This is one of those things. It allowed the taxman to connect systems. Banks fear lawsuits, penalties for data breaches. Okay? Meaning, essentially, your data is now going to not be as private as you thought.
As you thought it would be. Leave alone that you have an entire office of the data commissioner and all these other things where privacy is supposed to be guaranteed. Just leave that alone.
Yeah, banks have blocked the push by Kenya Revenue Authority to integrate its systems with theirs amid fears that the taxman could access sensitive personal data. They will, like the flow of cash in accounts without ground rails. That they will do.
Yeah.
KRA wants access to the data system of 38 banks in line with a quiet change in the law in December, which gives taxman powers to compel a taxpayer to integrate his system with that of the authority in fresh efforts to weed out tax evaders. This is utter nonsense. Top right-hand corner, there is no Till Green anymore. But there's an article by a gentleman called Frederick Okango, What Next? Raila, charting a new course for politics. Okay, if you say so.
Okango, he's...
Wairimu denied bail, this is Wairimu Cohen, over witness threats in Cohen murder case.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Until the witnesses are going to come to court and say
For now.
1, 2, 3, she'll be remanded.
Okay. SHA to check your KRA and M-Pesa data. The Social Health Authority has been granted access to members' mobile money transactions, Kenya Power payments, and NTSA details to unmask those paying too little, yet they can pay more.
What?
This is a breach of data confidentiality. No, sincerely. How?
It is. We'll look into that. In fact, let's take a break and come back and look at that particular story, shall we? Sure. All right, we'll take this break with Jubilee Health Insurance. Remember that with Lipa Pole Pole, you don't need to pay a lump sum up front. You can start enjoying full coverage and pay in manageable installments. So Jubilee Health Insurance has a wide network of over 800 hospitals, plus options for international treatment and overseas referrals. So there's a senior medical cover under this J plan, all right? It's for seniors and parents aged 65 years plus. What do you have? A premium average of 150,000 shillings per year. And inpatient cover goes from 500,000 to 10 million shillings. And outpatient limits are 50,000 to 200,000 shillings. So we cover chronic illnesses, cancer, home-based care, and drug delivery for long-term conditions. Check. Extensive cover for newly diagnosed and chronic conditions. Check. Psychiatric, congenital issues, cancer treatment, and related issues. Check. Also, you have no age limits for existing members. They stay on for life. So what you need to do, send a message, health, to 40643, call 0709 949 000, or visit www.jubileeinsurance.com.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 15. It's 13 and cloudy looking into Nakuru, and 12 and cloudy into Nyeri. 11 and clear conditions in Eldoret, while Mombasa is cloudy at 25, and we'll see sunny conditions in Malindi. 18 and clear in Kisumu, 16 and cloudy in Kakamega. Kampala is partly cloudy at 18, while Dar es Salaam at 27 is sunny. Johannesburg is still raining at 21, and we're looking into a cloudy Mogadishu at 24 with clear conditions at 12 in Addis Ababa. It's mostly cloudy at 28 in Lagos, with Kinshasa at 24 and cloudy. 4 degrees and sunny in Beijing, with 2 degrees and cloudy conditions in Paris, and 3 and mostly cloudy in London. New York is bitingly cold at -6, but clear.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
Already panning out to be a busy morning today. Let's take a look at the Southern Bypass. Not looking too bad right about now. You're going to get to the city without too much of a headache. But Langata Road is also starting to pile up when we look then at traffic coming in from Magadi Road and heading out towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. So there's some light traffic in that area. As you come off of the Uhuru Gardens interchange, we shouldn't see too much. Ngong Road is all looking good. And then as you come off the Thika Superhighway, a little bit of traffic that started to form past the Allsops Junction, making its way out into the CBD. Apart from that, not much clicking just now, but we're going to keep things moving either way this Wednesday as we get into Hump Day. Let's see what happens as we go through it and talk to each other. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
24
FM.
minutes to 7 o'clock, and now we look into some of these stories in detail, shall we? That one, CT.
You know, what I find strange, though, is how it is that this particular government, seems hell-bent on doing everything it possibly can to try and get its citizens to pay up, and yet you don't see enough effort being made to actually ensure that the economy is growing and there is a lot of economic activity. Everything that the government seems to put in place seems to guarantee the complete opposite. When there's increased economic activity, there is increased movement of money. When there's increased movement of money, it means more people get to have money in their hands. And if more people have money, then it means there are more people you can tax. But what the government is doing is reducing. This very thing that I have said is being reduced. So how do you expect to collect more money? How?
It's counterintuitive, it's counterproductive, it's counter anything that you can actually think about. Because if what you're trying to say is that you want to gather more money that would essentially go towards development, where you're gathering it from, there's only so much you can take from people. And when you raise prices on, so then those two things happen that for me are counterproductive. That when you raise prices on essentials, thinking that you'll be able to gather more in the domestic market, what you do is that you preclude folks from being able to spend. So two things can happen. One, they will not spend at all, or they will reduce the amount that you're spending. So that money that you essentially wanted to collect, you can't get it, because the behavior of people is that you are more likely to spend where there is more.
Of course, where you get value, because you only spend and invest where you're going to get quality and value for your money. It's very interesting how you expect Kenyans to actually pay for something. At this point in time, if you look at the analysis, they're still confused about. Allow me to read this. Now, many Kenyans are still unclear about how the SHA works, especially the differences between the defunct NHIF and the new system. The introduction of different funds under SHA, such as the Social Health Insurance Fund, that is SHIF, and Taifa Care, has led to widespread confusion and misinformation. The lack of adequate public awareness campaigns and has contributed to this problem. You know, it's interesting, though. We've seen the CS come to televised interviews, try to explain what this is. We've seen certain members of parliament call their constituents to explain how SHA actually works. But a lot of Kenyans are still coming out to say, what is this thing? What is SHIF? What is Taifa Care? Are you seeing this access to data saying, how would you be able to pay for more and you are paying less? I don't even know where that came from. That city here, when we look at your data, you are eligible to pay more, but you're paying less. So we're going to take some action. How does that work?
The thinking and the pronouncement makes sense in this regard. Even when it comes to taxes, there are people who are known to always want not to pay taxes.
Yep, evade it.
Avoid evade. Okay, yeah. But then many of these stories and narratives around this happened before we had the 2019 Data Protection Act. Okay? I want to read something so that you understand what I'm talking about. Key aspects of data protection, the guarantees. 1, data processing principles. Data controllers and processors must adhere to principles such as processing data in accordance with the right to privacy, ensuring fairness and transparency, and collecting data for specified and legitimate purposes.
Legitimate.
1. Yes. If you have a law, it makes it legitimate. But let's take it a step further. Principles of lawlessness and transparency. These include appropriate legal basis granting data subjects autonomy over their data. Grant them what? Autonomy. Okay? And using clear language to communicate with data subjects about processing. Okay? My beef here.
If you're going to do anything with that data and information, you must inform me in a manner that I understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Data minimization. Data processing should be adequate, relevant, and limited with necessary for the intended purposes. Collected data must be accurate and inaccuracies must be deleted. Now, our data laws are very clear about these things. So if you create a law that seems to run contrary to some of the guarantees that individuals have over the autonomy to their data, then what exactly do you think you are creating? Can you not find a way of getting people to actually pay what they should pay? You can.
You can.
These arm twisting tactics achieve the complete opposite effect.
Plus, it's a lazy way to do it, if you ask me.
Wow,
because
lazy.
you're going to use brute force. Because that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. You're using brute force, and you're instilling the fear of God in the minds of Kenyans to say that if you do not do this, then 1, 2, 3 will not happen. And that's not the way you should go about it. That the citizenry have to be equal stakeholders in this participation that we're talking about.
Right.
You can't just come and say, we will beat you over the head with a stick if you don't do. No. And at the end of the day, we'll beat you over the head with a stick in order for us to provide you with healthcare. Come on.
And just yesterday, a legislator made it very clear here to the public that the parliament or these institutions or arms of government are not deprived of experts, and for that matter, legal experts who would understand the position in it as far as the electorate is concerned, the public, the legalities, what you are reading, who and why are they not informed? If they're informed, why are they twisting Kenyans?
A lawmaker in the public glare, in the full hearing of people who listen to radio, telling you that the 3-judge bench made a mistake.
What do you think can't happen?
What do you think is being represented here? That they know more than a 3-judge bench.
And they made an error, so that's why
they know. And that they, who are the lawmakers, also have the right to interpret the law.
That's exactly what he said.
Yes. So essentially, if we were to take that argument to its logical conclusion, we don't need a judiciary. All we need is parliament, isn't it?
To do everything, exactly. Okay. I mean, this is the thing, that it's an ongoing conversation. We have to, we continue looking at it in terms of what it's going to be. I think they're going to have a very difficult time then being able to insist that people pay. Because look, you can look at me and think that somebody drives a vehicle or they live in a house, then you expect that there's extra money in their pockets. That's not the case. It's like the person who says, you owe me money and you've not paid me, but I can hear you frying meat in your house. I mean... Come on.
Wow, okay.
On the front page of the Standard, this big story about Kizza Besigye. We saw the pictures come out of the Ugandan courts over the last couple of days, and when he was presented to court on Monday, the look is not good at all. And this continued with calls for his release across, interestingly, not just the region, but across the continent, and it's going international as well. November 2024 is when Kizza Besigye, while attending a book launch in Nairobi, was abducted, transported to Uganda. 31st of January this year, Uganda's Supreme Court ruled the trial of civilians in military courts was unconstitutional. Now remember that Martha Karua is his legal representative. And this was what was taken to the appellate court. Appellate court then comes and it's not just the appellate court, but the Supreme Court comes back and says, actually, you know what? There will be no longer trials of civilians in military courts. What did that mean? That the trial of Kizza Besigye then had to move from the military court to a civilian court. So what did that also mean? That they could not hold him anymore under these military statutes. Did they listen? They did not. Come February 16th, after protests against Besigye's prolonged detention, Uganda announced that his case would then be transferred to the military court. It took that in order for that to happen. But that's just what we're looking at a glance. The story continues, and it's going into detail on page 4 and 5, that rights groups are demanding the release of a sick and jailed Museveni rival. They've announced plans to hold protests in Nairobi on Friday to push for the release of Ugandan opposition leader Kizza Besigye and other political detainees. Now remember, the person of Kizza is not the only person who's being held, right? This comes at a time when Besigye's health condition is deteriorating after going on a hunger strike a week ago, according to his allies. The lobby groups claim that a fresh wave of abductions and forceful arrests of government critics have emerged in Uganda, allegedly sanctioned by President Yoweri Museveni's administration. As of yesterday, according to Andrew Karamagi, a member of the group's legal team, there was a brazen abduction, and overnight there were 4 abductions, all of them violent. But the one that made it to the press is that of Fred Nyanzi, who was abducted by gunmen. So it seems like it is happening, and it is happening a lot more. Amnesty International regional researcher Roland Debole expressed concerns over deteriorating health conditions of Besigye, even as he faulted the Ugandan government for promoting what is termed as a culmination of years of human rights abuses and disregard for the constitution. This conversation is front and center for Kenya, and there are many who have said that if anything does happen to Besigye, that Kenya also has a case to answer.
In fact, that headline is bold. You know, one of these things is it's not even just Besigye's, case. There was the, Maria Sarungi, who's actually even spoken.
Yeah.
And she says, we call on Kenyan authorities to acknowledge that abductions and renditions have been committed, constituting crimes under international law. And this has been the conversation, like, why Kenya? All right? Why now? Is anyone going to speak over and beyond it? And not just brazen, abductions. We're actually seeing the conviction of lawyer Aaron Kiza by General Court Martial for contempt of court and sentencing to 9 months imprisonment without a fair trial is brazen targeting of a lawyer in the line of duty. It goes even deeper. You know, just the other day after the AUC loss, there has been this conversation around our diplomatic blunders.
I like how we call it AUC loss as opposed to an AUC election.
Okay, elections, we lost. Okay, of course, for us it's a loss. Carry but now there's this talk of our diplomatic blunders, which has really gotten different people talking. Are we just getting worse through it?
We'll see.
You know what I was saying? The Standard has actually indicated that the circulation of money in this particular country of ours, in the business section, has dropped by 10 billion.
Yes.
It's going to continue dropping. I'm stuck on this point for a very simple reason. The wars we keep seeing have to do with the money.
Yeah.
If we are paying exorbitant amounts for debts that were accumulated on our behalf, but without our consent, then actually we were represented by the members of parliament.
Yes.
So indeed, by extension, it was with our consent. We suddenly find that with every passing day, we seem to have a hiatus when there is no discussion, there is no talk of us paying any debt. But the moment that conversation rears its head, you suddenly find you have very, very little to actually spend on anything in the country. Now, that little or anything gets worse because if we do not collect enough, then we borrow more. If we borrow more, then it means we owe more.
Yes.
So if we owe more, when it comes to payment, it means this percentage that we keep saying we are left with for spending is going to keep getting less and less and less. So the problems that we seem to be having, it appears that we are only touching the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely. And you don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but that's just the truth. If you're looking at 10 billion short in terms of circulation, then what's going to happen in the coming months, in the coming years?
This is February.
This is February, and this is where we are. You're getting towards in the next 3 months the end of a budget cycle. You're coming to a new budget in just 3-4 months, and this is where you are now. There's a problem. There's a big one. There's a big problem. It has to be. These are the things. These are the many, moving parts that need to be addressed.
And with the debts, just don't forget how the shilling and dollar could behave. Sometimes it makes it even harder because if our shilling weakens, then the debt becomes bigger and the behavior load. Well, a lot of dynamics around it.
On the front page of The Nation, there's this big story. We can't run away from it. Dangerous territory is what it's being called. Kenya's credentials as a regional arbiter and peacemaker could be eroded, as one of the Sudanese fighting factions, the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, prepares to launch a parallel government in Nairobi Friday.
Interesting.
President William Ruto has previously rolled out the red carpet for the group's leader, General Mohamed Hamdan Hemedti Dagalo, angering the junta in Khartoum. Now, they're saying how? We can look at the details of the story, which we will in just a minute, but just look at the genealogy of the Sudan crisis and the participation of Kenya as a peacemaker from the times of, the Accord, and times where you had folks like Garang coming in and having conversations, coming in and you had the likes of Kalonzo Musyoka, who brokered peace deals for Somalia and Sudan, and then coming to the place where we are now, whereby the need for a legitimate government to be recognized then came into place. Who's recognized? Now, if you have come from that place where you stood in the position of arbiter, and then now you are saying what we are going to do is recognize a group who wants to come into Nairobi and form a government.
Parallel.
Yes.
Form a government where previously you stood for the peace process and the establishment of a legitimate government.
Yes.
So what exactly are you saying when you roll out the red carpet for them? And if they're going to launch their own government, the gains made could be eroded with these events that are supposed to happen. The initial date was Monday, but the event was marred by confusion, ending with the deferment to Friday. The RSF leadership converged at the Kenyatta International Conference Center yesterday, with General Daglo's brother and Deputy Abdul Rahim Hamdan Daglo announcing at the ceremony that they would conclude with the signage of an agreement forming a parallel government. So, in terms of diplomatic relations, where does Kenya stand? Where previously you have recognized the government of the day, and then now essentially you're playing host to a parallel government. Where are you in terms of an arbiter of the peace process? So trust crisis in Africa? We're going to have that conversation with Tito Alai at 9, but these are some of the things that we are talking about. What exactly does this mean? Are we looking at frosty relations then in the region coming back once again?
And Kenyans need that right now?
What are we? There's very many things. Look at what's happening. Look at what's happening with DR Congo. Tshisekedi already is taking a step back and he's wondering, what exactly is Kenya doing when they're leaning towards Rwanda? And DR Congo has already said that Rwanda seems to be the ones who are not really interested in us having peace in this region.
Wait, was he even there for the AUC elections himself? Tshisekedi? I don't think he was in attendance.
I do not know.
One would imagine that he's got a little bit of something going on in his backyard that maybe this was not a big deal for him.
Yeah.
Remember the decisions that are made by our foreign ministry unfortunately represents all of us. So long as you're Kenyan, you have been represented. If a decision is made and it is something that runs contrary to what leaders in the continent may think, leaders in the region may think. But this isn't the first time we are seeing this. We had a national day when at the time the ICC were looking for Bashir, the then leader of Sudan. And they had issued a warrant of arrest.
Yes, sir.
Did we not entertain him?
Proper. Basically red carpet.
Yes. When Morocco was kicking a fuss about the Hawaiian government, did we not entertain the leader in Kenya during one of our national days as well?
Not just in Kenya, in State House and then during that event.
Yes. We did.
So, perspective here, and that was not during the time of President Ruto's presidency, was it?
No.
Okay, and then there was something that we also did. We decided to invade Somalia, didn't we? Up to that point, there were terrorist attacks in Kenya, but they were not targeting Kenyans.
You were playing Big Brother?
Yes, there was an attack on the U.S. Embassy in here and in Dar es Salaam.
Yes.
Okay, so the terrorists were in existence. We attacked Somalia. What then happened? How did we then suddenly find ourselves not just at odds with our neighbors, but what did we suddenly start witnessing in Kenya?
I think I think there are calls for, and I do understand. The world over, that foreign policy will take a bit of a shift with any new administration, but there needs to be, a very clear position in terms of Kenya's foreign policy today as it concerns. If we just look at the region, where is it conflicted? If you look at Sudan, if you then look at South Sudan, and then you're looking at the insurrection that we see happening in Djibouti,
yes,
Ethiopia, DR Congo, what's happening with those frosty relations that are starting to form Rwanda and then into South Africa. If we look at what's happening with Uganda today, and folks are saying Kenya is at fault, what's your foreign policy here where you say, okay, are we going to play Big Brother? Because that's been the case. We're going to play Big Brother economically in the region. But what does that have to do? We saw the position that Kenya took as we will be the one who is the referee, guys. We saw it in Somalia. We saw it in South Sudan and Sudan. But now here, everybody seems to have an issue coming. Tanzania, very silently is competing with Kenya economically and says, well, the position for Big Brother, it's very possible that we will take it without your permission.
Tanzania overtook us economically a long time ago. This thing that we keep talking about, they overtook us. They are ahead. It's not even complicated. They are ahead. They have a plan. They are industrializing. Okay, they're not talking. They're not politicizing. They're not too noisy on that front. They are doing things. And here we are busy saying, these Tanzanians, that. They are moving ahead as we talk.
There was that conversation that Kenya is quite aggressive. That belief of we have been ahead in the region economically, and the Big Brother, and people, seek, our opinion in a number of things, including peacekeeping, and that Kenya has gone into her head. And it's really, really aggressive at this point in time. But I agree with you guys that if we're not careful, and like you've said, Tanzania, for a long time, analysis has it that they will. All right, they're saying they will overtake us in a very short time.
Those analysts need to go and check their data. Tanzania has overtaken us economically. It is not complicated.
It's not a futuristic thing.
No, they have done it. They're just not making noise about it.
They're not making noise about it.
No, but they have.
Interesting.
So I'm saying, I think forming a foreign policy just needs to be defined. If you're going to be the one that's going to be bullish in nature diplomatically, then go ahead and say that. Go ahead and make it. I mean, we know what foreign policy is for the United States today and how it has formed with the new administration, that nationalism has taken center stage. We can see that foreign policies across Europe are changing and folks, again, going towards nationalism. We already know that the policy for some countries in Africa and where it goes, that we're going to do the whole brother camaraderie, and that's how we're going to deal. But Kenya, you have spats with people here and there. You are allowing certain things to happen right here in the country, where you're allowing a parallel government to come and be named in Kenya, number one. Abductions took place from countries of Tanzania and Uganda. Those people are having issues. Then now you say that you actually... Remember that it was just a few months ago, essentially, when Kenya was named a non-member ally of NATO. So what are you exactly saying? How are you placing yourself? It seems to be a lot of confusion.
Did we also not take a little turn at the Security Council? Not as a permanent member.
But still.
Meaning those are recognitions that you're a big player. Okay? The thing that must be remembered, these pronouncements that are made have consequences. Trump, the master of pronouncements, has been engaging reverse gear on very many things. He boldly came forth and said this, and watch and read what he's doing now. He is reversing those gears. Well, these pronouncements that are made, when they are made by the leader of a country, man, they have very, very serious consequences.
Oh, yes, and that is what we don't take note of every time that our leaders or the Kenyan leaders make certain pronouncements. I don't think there's keen attention given to the consequences of those particular pronouncements. But I actually agree with you, Siti, that at this point in time, Kenya needs to be a little more observant and careful with the relations that it has with other countries. We're not an island, but how you relate is also very, very important.
I don't even think it's an issue of being careful. I think Kenya just needs to be clear on what its policy is. If you're going to be the one in the region who is saying that we don't care how things are happening, say it. Be very clear. Don't let there be confusion in how you deal with one to another. Be clear.
Very dangerous clarity. Very dangerous clarity.
Be clear and just say this is the situation. Don't let people second guess you and ask, okay, are you actually going this way or that? Don't let people ask.
Is there any political... Is there any country that comes out clear?
Yes.
Like which country is clear?
Very
Rwanda?
clear.
Rwanda is absolutely clear.
Which other country is very clear?
South Africa is clear. I mean, on this continent.
Yeah, I'm curious to ask.
The West African countries who've decided
Nigeria?
they had enough. Nigeria is very clear.
Very clear about where they stand.
Ghana, very clear.
No, Ghana is absolutely clear.
Yes.
And there's nothing, and that's why foreign policy is foreign policy. That you're very clear on where you stand and what you do.
Yes.
We continue with these conversations. Good morning. It's 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Juja MP George Koimburi is set to be presented in court after he was denied bail yesterday. His lawyers Ndegwa Njiru and Makueni Senator Dan Manzo say they've not filed a report on his claim that the government, on claims that the government spent 13 billion shillings on the campaign of former AUC chairman Raila Odinga. They've accused President William Ruto of allegedly suppressing his opponents.
Declined to record any statement, and therefore we have elected to remain silent. They have taken him to Kamukonji right now. They have refused to give him bail, but we are also engaging other facilities.
The charge. But I want to say that one of the biggest tasks Honorable Koimburi has is to impeach President Ruto. That particular allegation is sufficient ground to bring upon him an impeachment motion on the floor of the House, because that's the work of members of Parliament. That's sufficient ground, and I am very sure it can be substantiated. One or two people can give us that information.
Speaking at the DCI headquarters in Kiambu County, Senator Karungo Thangwa said he'll continue to hold the government accountable.
They should not weaponize police to come and try to silence members of parliament. And I'm telling Koimburi, weka gangari. Wakupeleke wapi? Wakupeleke polisi. We are told he has been taken to Kamukunji police station to detain him. So we are telling President, I know you lost AUC chairmanship. Accept and move on. I know you are disappointed. Accept and move on. We are determined. For us, we are disappointed and we are determined. We are we are determined. So prepare because we cannot keep quiet. We cannot stay mum.
There's a looming doctor strike after KMPDU Secretary General Davji Atela threatened that they'll down their tools following Health CS Deborah Baraza's remarks regarding the salaries of the intern doctors. Atela was responding to a video clip from the 2025 Health Summit which took place at the Deputy President's official residence in Karen. In the video, CS Baraza stated that newly recruited intern doctors would be paid 70,000 shillings per month, far less than the 206,000 stipulated in the 2017 CBA. This drastic pay cut has reignited tensions as a similar attempt to implement the 70,000 shilling salary last year led to a nationwide strike by medical interns, crippling healthcare services across the country. And finally, activists from various human rights groups from Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania have threatened to protest outside the parliament and offices of the Ugandan embassy in Nairobi to demand the release of Ugandan opposition leader Kizza Besigye. Besigye, whose health has continued to deteriorate, has been detained for some time since his arrest in Nairobi. In a press conference in the country, the activists condemned Besigye's kidnapping and detention, claiming that the act suppresses and threatens the growth of democracy.
Despite the Supreme Court decision and legal applications for the release of Kizza Besigye, Haj Obeid Lutale, lawyer Aaron Kizza, and others, Ugandan authorities have disregarded court orders and continue to arbitrarily deprive them of their liberty.
We call on the Ugandan authorities to immediately release Kizza Besigye, Haj Obeid Lutale, Aaron Kizza, and others who are unlawfully detained.
They've also called on the Ugandan government to immediately release him and other prisoners who continue to be tortured. This comes as Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has described Besige's hunger strike as baseless, alleging that he's using it as a tactic to gain public sympathy and press for his release on bail. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Obaga.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It is 6 minutes after 7 o'clock into the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this Wednesday, getting over the hump and through into the rest of the week. And our live streams up. Have to remind you, YouTube, Facebook, and on X. Karibu sana to our audience on KTN. We get into a conversation this hour, a bit of a sensitive one, but we're going to do it anyway. And just before we do that and welcome our guests into the studio, Diamond Trust Bank, DTB Mortgages, telling us the good stuff.
Diamonds. Trusted. Well, let's push that trust a little bit and let's shepherd it in the direction of a mortgage, shall we? This trusted financial institution, Diamond Trust Bank, is saying we have a plan to offer you mortgages or a mortgage that would suit your needs and your pocket. So take note of the following. 1, the interest rate will be 9% for a 10-year mortgage.
Right.
For a 25-year mortgage, the interest rate will be 9.75. 1. 2, this is made possible because Diamond Trust Bank has an understanding that with the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company, and because of that, the 9% and 9.7% will not shift or move, constant.
Yep.
Okay? Diamond Trust Bank is also saying this. It doesn't matter whether you are self-employed or whether someone else has employed you, whether you're in the diaspora. So let's start. You are employed. You can access up to 105%. This means even the charges and stuff that you normally pay when you get a mortgage are taken care of by this. If you're in the diaspora, they're saying 80%. And then they're saying, look, let's just add a little icing on this. There are no hidden charges. If you pay upfront and you pay ahead of schedule, there will be no penalties. Now, in case you want to verify this information and thinking this can't be true, well, let's do this. Why don't you just send an email to mortgages@dtbafrica.com, or better still, let your feet do the walking. Go to any Diamond Trust Bank branch and ask for this information. It will be given to you.
It will be given to you. Fantastic. 1 million people get into the job market every year. And from that 1 million people, not everybody has the skills that they need to be able to make the connect to work or towards business. So KCB Foundation, through the 2G program, says, we see you. And what they've done for youth between the ages of 18 and 35 is that they've been able to connect them now to skills training for 6 months. You finish that skills training for 6 months. You then get a toolkit, and you then get access to loans, and then also placement in jobs, or then get the boost that you need for business, making sure that you can get through those different skills that you might want to: automotive engineering, masonry, plumbing, beauty and design, photography. I mean, the list is endless, and has helped up to 155,000 youth around the country so far, and is willing to do more. How do you find out information about that? Go to KCB Group/foundation. It's changing lives, one skill set at a time. We're getting into a conversation this morning that has been doing the rounds, and we've talked about how we can shed some light into what is really happening and what the call would be. I mean, it's splashed all around the headlines, but this morning we will and already welcome our guest. Martin Mavenjina is a senior program advisor, transitional justice at the Kenya Human Rights Commission, and we're talking about forced disappearances and unlawful detention, a Ugandan case study this morning. Martin, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you again in the Situation Room. How are you doing?
Good. Always a pleasure to come to the Situation Room. To the hot seat.
To the hot seat.
Yes.
You're in the hot seat this morning, and it is a hot topic and a sensitive one for a lot of people. From the pictures that we've seen, from the things that we have heard, from the cases that are ongoing, but we'll go into those in detail. How about we welcome you first of all with today's proverb, and then you can interpret that for us and tell us what it means to you.
Okay. Sure.
All right.
Our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the Republic of Niger. Okay, it is some countries have a president, some countries have.
Some presidents have a country. Okay,
some
sorry.
Some even have a prime minister. Some even have a king. Some even have a queen.
Oh, yes.
Okay? Yes. Well, in Niger, they have a president of the National Council. So it's not just president. It's like we've got this group of people who are going to take charge, and there's a president. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Let's look at the proverb. Only God can chase away flies from a tailless cow.
Only God can chase away.
Yes. Only God can chase away flies from a tailless cow.
Okay, that's a good one. So, my interpretation of that is of the proverb Aziz is that it literally means that God is the creator of all living creatures, because when you look at it, only God can chase away. I mean, that's my literal interpretation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The interpretation is good. You're clearly a God-fearing person. Yes.
Yeah.
You're going to come with what you need, essentially.
Yeah.
God will cover you.
He
provided.
Even if you don't have something, He'll fill that gap for you.
Indeed. Sure. All right. Let's look at filling the gaps this morning, shall we, Martin?
Sure.
We're doing a Ugandan case study this morning, of course. We'll come down to the details of some of the things that we've seen later. But just with broad strokes, paint a picture for us of what is happening. When we talk about forced disappearances and unlawful detention, what is happening in Uganda? Far be it from Kenya to be able to have conversations about what's happening in Kenya, not take into consideration what's happening, in neighboring countries. Paint that picture for us to have an understanding of what is really happening in Uganda.
Okay, thank you for the question, Do. So, the current context of what is happening in Uganda is not something new. For a very long time, people who have been critical to the government of the day have been disappeared, and this has usually happened in the context of a run-up to an election. So, if you remember, in the run-up to the 2021 election, there were very many opposition supporters who had disappeared.
Yeah.
And this is well documented by the Uganda Human Rights Commission and a host of other civil society organizations in Uganda. So for a very long time, it's a vice that has actually manifested itself for an inordinate period of time. We have close to over 500 Ugandans unaccounted for. And that is primarily because, as is right now, yes, in as much as Uganda agreed to the International Convention on Enforced Disappearance in June 1995, they have not made any practical arrangements in trying to actually come up with a legal framework of domesticating that important piece of convention. So as is, because you do not have an enabling piece of legislation that actually criminalizes the act of enforced disappearances, then it simply explains why security agents are more emboldened to actually continuously commit those who are deemed critical to the government. Now, in terms of from the different media reports and those that have been documented by civil society organizations, you do realize that there has been, allegations that most of these people are disappeared by specialized security agents, and specifically the Special Force Command, that is an entity within one of the security apparatuses, and then, of course, the Chieftaincy of Military Intelligence. So when you look at Uganda's security terrain or security structure, there are a lot of specialized security entities that are best to deal with different. The presumption is that they were created to enhance security, but in hindsight, what that has done is that it has given them unfettered discretion to commit more serious crimes. So, fast forward, just to drive home to your question. So, what is happening right now in Uganda is we have an opposition leader who was actually unlawfully, may I say, was actually abducted and disappeared from right here in Nairobi, only to be found tried before the court martial. Today actually marks 96 days since the trial began. On the 31st of January this year, we did have the Supreme Court pronouncing itself on the whole question of whether civilians can be tried in the General Court Martial. And while we appreciate that Dr. Besigye was actually served in the Uganda People's Defense Forces, he did retire honorably. So as is and up to date, he's a civilian and cannot be subjected to a trial in a court martial. So that question of who gets to be tried in a court martial is something that the courts have been grappling with, and it all began when the state sued Honorable Michael Kabaziguruka, who was then a former MP. He was tried in the military court martial for treason, and he challenged that. So fast forward, the Attorney General challenged challenged the decision that was given in Honorable in the MP's favor, and the Supreme Court has since pronounced itself. So as we speak today, they have not been. Today actually marks 18 days since that decision that was passed. In fact, 19 days. So the authorities in Uganda have not done anything.
What was the decision that was made by the Supreme Court?
So the decision that was made by the Supreme Court was, one, the key take-home was civilians cannot be tried in the General Court Martial. They also requested the government of the day to make to revise the provisions within the Uganda People's Defense Forces Act, because the Act as is seemed to give them leeway to actually try civilians. But in actual sense, when you look at how courts are structured in Uganda, the General Court Martial has a semblance of the High Court. I mean, it's at par with the High Court, but in hierarchies of when you look at the hierarchy of the courts, the Supreme Court is the one that makes the final decision. So, as is, you cannot actually try a civilian in the General Court Martial. The other thing that the Supreme Court directed was that Dr. Kizza Besigye should have been unconditional released, and his trial should have been transferred to a civilian court. So in this instance, that proceeding would have been decided on its merits in a high court.
So because if he did go to then a civilian court, then the issues of perhaps granting of bail and such then could come into play.
Yes.
Now, this is not the first time that we've seen Kizza Besigye arrested, held.
Yes.
This is easily a decade-long behavior that we have seen.
Yes.
Now, I'm trying to tie that with what you said, whereby over 500 Ugandans, I mean,
the number could actually be higher.
It could be higher, and it's a ridiculously high number.
Yes.
And if we say that there is basically a cloud cover of anyone critical of the government and the administration of Yoweri Museveni, then the likelihood of having them disappeared is significantly higher. Tie all of these things together, where at some point, I mean, just looking at international relations, I would say when Kizza Besigye took a walk in Kampala, he could be arrested.
Yes.
He opened his mouth and took a breath, he could be arrested. So are we looking at personal vendetta, or are we looking at criticism of the government as something that is frowned upon, and that is a policy whereby we're going to have a visit with you should you be critical of government?
So I think for the longest time, what is transpiring in Uganda is a simple playbook trick that all repressive regimes have used for the longest time. Anybody who is deemed to be critical to the government of the day, or critical or a threat to the government of the day, or even tries to challenge the authorities that seem to be a threat. And when you look at Dr. Kizza Besigye, rightly said, yes, he's not the only one who's been targeted. I mean, Honorable Robert Chagulani, popularly known as Bobby Wine, has faced the same tribulations over time again, and many other people who have actually opposed the regime of the day. So it's something that has been happening for long, and unfortunately, I think the international community has let down very many Ugandans, because ideally there should be spaces in which countries should be held to account, or kept in check. For instance, when you look at the Universal Periodic Review Mechanism, that is a UN peer review mechanism, that is a framework that the Ugandan government should have been held in check. Not even going so far, the East African community should have actually reined in on Uganda for those acts, because when you look at what they signed on in the treaty, all countries say they will aspire to ensure that citizens enjoy their fundamental rights and freedoms. But just going back to what you'd said, yes, the Ugandan constitution actually provides for the rights of an accused person, and under Chapter 4, and it's very elaborate, whereby an accused person should be entitled to legal representation, and it's akin to what is replicated in the Kenyan constitution. But when you look at the manner in which the trial has been started, the manner in which Dr. Besigye has been persecuted right from the onset, right from his unlawful abduction here in Nairobi, which actually is all riddled with, I must say, Andu, that there is no way that Dr. Besigye could have arrived from and got into Kenya on the 28th of November through JKIA, and then within 48 or 56 hours, you find he's in a general court-martial. I mean, there is literally no way you can get CT out of Kenya here and ends up in Kampala without some semblance of cooperation from the security agencies here. So
Kenya, essentially what we are saying is that Kenya cooperated for this to happen? Is Kenya to blame for this?
Yes, and cooperation can...
Entirely?
Yes, cooperation can be seen... complacency can be seen based on your silence or by your conduct. Now, in the current circumstances, Kenya has a very elaborate border control system. I mean, if you come through JKIA, you can only exit through the usual border points. And the beauty about Nairobi is that most of our roads are manned with CCTV cameras. So it beats logic that a prominent figure like Dr. Kizza Besigye could actually be abducted from Westlands, and then 56 hours later, we are being informed that he's actually in the general court-martial. But be as it may, there are some statements that we've seen on media, in different media spaces, that have actually alluded to Kenya being an aid and abettor to what he's going through. About a week ago, the spokesperson of the Uganda People's Defence Forces, that is Felix Kulaiji, was on record in the media was saying, well, if we wanted to actually harm Besigye, we could have done it when we actually abducted him from Nairobi. So by the time, the spokesperson of the military is telling you, or he's insinuating we could have done once if we wanted, it's an inference that they couldn't not have done this without cooperation or some form of assistance from their counterparts.
If I look at this globally, because you said essentially this is the order of the day in different governments, and I'm looking at the African continent for that matter. In fact, alluding that Kenya assisted, with what's happening to Dr. Besigye. What then happens to documents like the African Human Rights System rooted in the African Charter on Human and People's Rights? I think it's called Banjul Charter.
Yes, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights.
That aims to protect and promote human rights across the continent. We're looking at civil, political, economic, and social and cultural rights, as well as people's rights. Because someone would say then they're not respected, they don't apply, then presidents or the leaders of the day get to do things based on what exactly, if not this. And also, there has been concerns, even here in Kenya, where you'd hear leaders say, well, the highest we can go is the ICC or the East African, court. Are they really, helpful in as far as these situations are concerned, because even though the courts pronounced themselves on the position of Besige's trial in the military court, there is content of that same order. What do you think really these charters are for if they're not taken into consideration?
Okay, thanks for that question. I think the framers of these charters, like the African Charter on Human People's Rights and a host of several international instruments, were aimed at ensuring that we have progressive pieces of laws or legislations that actually ensure that fundamental rights and freedoms are enjoyed by citizens, not only within Africa, but also globally. And these same charters also create a semblance or a framework of accountability whereby states are kept in check. Now, what many states have done for the longest time is that they have signed onto these charters, or they have, but what they fail to do is to replicate the provisions within these charters within their domestically within their countries. So when you look at Uganda, yes, Uganda is a signatory to the African Charter.
Yes,
it did accede to the International Convention on the Protection of Persons, or all persons against enforced disappearance. But what they have not done is there is no legal framework
for the implementation of it.
Yes,
absolutely.
So with an absence of legal framework, then it's as good as saying, yes, I accept this law is progressive, but I am going to do nothing. And remember, Uganda asserted to this in 1995. How many years back?
Oh, wow. And this is the thing, isn't it? That you can, and many would say that this is by design. This is intentional.
Yes.
Because that's the thing about charters, that's the thing about treaties, that even though you do ratify them, that one of the things that you must do in country is provide the necessary framework under which now those charters or treaties can then be implemented. So it would appear as though that it is deliberate and it's designed to not have the framework, so that you can use that as an excuse to say, well, we've not set it up, isn't it?
Yes, it's actually a well calculated ploy, not only by Uganda but very many states. I mean, even Kenya here.
Yes.
Just to deliberately ensure that you circumvent accountability. So, if there is no framework for where you can hold perpetrators of this of the crime of enforced disappearance to account, then it simply means that it is open season, and that may explain why, even when you look at the recent ongoings in Kenya, you realize that you've seen a number of Kenyans who have been disappeared, which is not even different from what is happening in Uganda. But the key question that most of us are grappling with here is who gets to hold the perpetrators, or who gets to hold the state to account, right? And the interesting thing is that when you look at when you look at Besige's case, I must say that for a long time, the Kenya Human Rights Commission has actually worked with victims and survivors of enforced disappearance from Kampala. In fact, in 2022, we did convene the Uganda Human Rights and Accountability Conference, where we brought victims here and they were able to share their testimony. And the whole essence of that was because they could not be able to have a forum to actually express some of the violations that they've been subjected to. Now, specifically with Besige's case, when we realized that he had been disappeared from Nairobi, we did, assemble a legal team that's been led by the Honorable Martha Karua, and we've been working behind the scenes together with the Lord Mayor Elias Lukwago, who is a good friend of mine, and we've been trying to see how do we explore the legal channels to ensure that he's accorded, a fair trial as provided for in the Constitution. Because, I mean, be as it may, even if they were to proceed in the court martial, the least they would have done was to accord him his constitutional rights, that is fair hearing. But when you look at what is transpiring in the court, what has transpired so far in the court martial, he's actually been denied. In fact, the Honorable Martha Karua was actually denied a practicing certificate.
Yes.
We actually had to appeal, and it actually took the president of the Law Society of Uganda to actually say that the process on how the basis on which was denied was actually not right, and that is how she actually got the certificate. So
is it temporary though?
Yes, it's temporary because actually what happens is so you can actually apply. First and foremost, I must say that an accused person has a right to legal representation, and you have a right to choose a lawyer of your own. So it was Dr. Besige's preference that his legal team be led by the Honorable Martha Karua. Yes.
You know, there's something that I have to ask.
Yes.
I'm looking at our continent.
Yes.
And I'm looking at how it is the leadership, the president, the executive in this continent seem to understand that the opposition are essentially enemies. And that every attempt must be made to either minimal effort intimidate them. That is actually when they're being polite. If they have an opportunity to actually exterminate them, if they have the opportunity. But then with all these international laws encumbering them, they then decide that perhaps the best thing to do is disappear a few of their kind people who are of like-mindedness, intimidate them some more, every once in a while kill a few. Now, are we saying that we as a continent are incapable of actually adhering to certain fundamentals of human rights? Because if you look at the way we treat people who enact coups, coups send shivers down the spine of leaders of this continent. You are removed from any economic organization that you are part of. All manner of things. AU doesn't allow you to do God knows what. There's all that. So it tells you the leadership have a way of coalescing around each other. And it looks like they also have a way of coalescing around each other. Even when wrong is being committed, you do not hear our political African leaders calling each other out. Or do they call each other out and I'm the one who missed that note?
And if they do they genuinely call each other out?
I think they do it in a more like pampered way. But just to respond to your CT, I think it is possible. Actually, it is very possible for all countries in Africa, including Uganda, to adhere to, the rule of law. But the biggest problem that is ailing Uganda, which is actually a common denominator that is shared by, its neighbors here like Kenya and all the other states around Africa, is the lack of political will. There is just absolutely no political will to follow the rule of law, because when you look at what is, and what that has done to NCT is we have actually transnationalized enforced disappearances, because when you look at the recent ongoings, for instance, Kenya has actually become the playfield for enforced disappearances. And if you allow me, and if you look at some of the report, the incidences that have been documented in the last 5 years, is actually a very good report by Human Rights Watch. In 2017, there were 2 South Sudanese nationals who were actually abducted here in Nairobi, just in front of Kencom, and only later on to be found dead in South Sudan. So there's different, and more recently, you remember, I think a couple of months ago, you remember 4 Turkish nationals were refouled from here, and we had our own good PS Koreo Singoe confirming that we actually refouled these fellows. So states actually it's when you look at the way they operate, it's more or less of a game of self-preservation of existing status quo and what is in it for them, as opposed to following fundamental rights and freedoms and following what is just and right. So when you look at what Dr. Kizza Besigye and other victims of enforced disappearances are being subjected to, procedurally you can clearly tell that they have due process wasn't followed. Yes, because if you even look at the charges that were preferred against Besigye, you'd ask yourself, so you're saying, he walked through JKIA and actually came with a firearm, and then you ask yourself, if you wanted to to overthrow the government of Uganda, why would you do it in Kenya? It's not something that you can do. You can do. It's not a one. Or it's not something you can do. But bears a may, CT. Back to your question on you did mention the aspect of countries are always afraid of unconstitutional takeovers. But the sad reality is that very many countries have actually most of the crop of leaders that we have actually come through unconstitutional orders. In fact, President Museveni actually overthrew the government of the day back then, and
I think you've gotten to the heart of the matter.
Yes, he's got to, and he took over. And what most of these leaders do is you take over government, then you try to can I say, legitimize now your stay?
Yeah.
So, because when you look at Uganda's history, yes, the government of the day was overthrown in 1986. Fast forward in 1995, we came up with a constitution that was amended again in 2005 and has seen a series of amendments. So, and that is like a steady pattern that is in very many, in some African countries. So, in as much as we now have frameworks of good governance, you can't run away from the aspect of there being an unconstitutional takeover, and that usually arises as a result of citizens or basically citizens being fed up with what the government of the day it is doing. A good case in point is when you look at the series of unconstitutional unconstitutional or unlawful change of power in West Africa. That has happened because the despots or the leaders of those days had oppressed their citizens, had violated people
to the point that they couldn't.
Yes, and they were like, you know what, we're fed up. And that is why, strangely, when there are unconstitutional takeovers, you see citizens are actually happy to welcome the army to actually, get rid of X or Y, because I mean they are outrightly oppressed. So I don't foresee an Africa whereby you will be able to prevent unconstitutional.
Do you know what is strange?
Yes.
Of all, how many countries do we have on this continent? 54?
54.
Yes.
Of all the countries we have on this continent, only 3 countries have a constitution that explicitly outlines and protects the sovereignty of the citizen. 3. Angola, Kenya, South Africa. Only. The others, more or less, Uganda features, they skirt around it. Many they skirt around it. But to state it categorically and to explicitly express it in the constitution so that the citizen is a sovereign. 3.
That's the conversation that we're having this morning. Martin Mavenjina is here with us as a senior program advisor, transitional justice at the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, and we're having this conversation this hour, asking ourselves, okay, and I think now we can get into the broader question, and we look at the continent of Africa and constitutionalism, which constitutions essentially should house the provisions and the protections of human rights for its citizens, regardless of who you are. Dr. Kizza Besigye sat in that chair a few months ago and basically said, you know what, rule of law must prevail. Constitutionalism must be the supremo. And so we're coming to some of those conversations when we come back right after this break. Businesses, whether they're small, whether they're medium, whether they're large, are getting onto the Veto platform, and you ask why. Well, this is a place whereby you can make payments seamlessly. Transactions can happen for you as a small, as a medium, and as a large business in a very short period of time. And it can also happen with no hidden charges. It can also happen with affordable rates, and you can make country to country payments to 190 countries in 49 different currencies. VetoFX.com is the email address, or rather the site address where you can go and find out more information about how you can get your business onboarded and get into seamless, easy transactions, and you don't have to worry about the headaches of traditional payments. Do it with VetoFX.com today.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to the weather with SpiceFM. SpiceFM. Spice up your life.
All right, let's take a look at what's happening with traffic right about now as we're clicking into traffic hour. Coming off of Thika Superhighway, traffic is pretty heavy as you come in through towards Survey. Also beyond that, coming in all the way from Githurai and the Wairimu Junction, very, very heavy traffic, bumper to bumper through and through. And it's going to take you all the way towards Muranga Road. Also on Kiambu Road, a couple of lanes here. And folks are trying to make their way towards Muthaiga Square. It's busy coming off Waiyaki Way. James Kishore not giving too much, so that's okay. The Red Hill Link Road will find its way in from Gigiri and then all post on Limuru Road today because it's heavy traffic there. Waiyaki Way, then getting towards Chiromo is also pretty heavy. Now, Langata Road, very busy. Gong Road, heavy traffic as you try to get towards the Nairobi Funeral Home Junction. And there's also some traffic as you find your way onto Langata Road this morning. So we're in traffic hour. Let's talk and keep things moving this morning. SpiceFM, KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Medical emergencies don't wait for payday. So why should you? Picture this. You or a loved one falls sick. The hospital bill sky high. The stress overwhelming. But with Jubilee Health Insurance, you don't have to panic. Affordable health covers from just 200 shillings per month. Lipa pole pole. Get covered now. Pay in easy installments. Access to over 800 hospitals plus telemedicine and free drug delivery. SMS Health to 40643. Call 0709 949 000 or visit www.jubileeinsurance.com. Jubilee Health Insurance. Your health, your peace of mind. Running a business in Kenya and struggling with slow, expensive cross-border payments? With Verto, you can send and receive money globally, faster, cheaper, and hassle-free. Pay suppliers, collect payments, and expand internationally with ease. 49 currencies, 190 plus countries. One powerful platform. Better rates, faster settlements, secure transactions. Global payments made easy. Sign up today at www.vertofx.com. Verto, your global business payments partner.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
19 minutes to 10 o'clock. I beg your pardon, I've skipped it, haven't I? 19 minutes to 8 o'clock this morning. And we're continuing our conversation with Martin Mavenjina, who's a senior program advisor at Transitional Justice at the Kenya National Human Rights Commission. We talk about constitutions around the continent, don't we? And again, this is essentially the house for a lot of things, one of them being human rights and how they should be protected, how they should be adhered to by the government of the day. I think there are too many examples of how these rights have been abrogated over and over and over again, and that the constitutions of nations seem to be suggestions. Even though they're the supreme law, they seem to be suggestions, and it's very clear what somebody should be or should not be allowed to do under that law. Now, if we zero in on what's happening right now in Uganda, it's interesting because I saw a comment that it would be probably very difficult to have this same conversation that we are having in Uganda at the moment. Why are we able to have situations like this in the glare of day without anything significantly being done to counter a negative situation?
Thanks for that question, Du. I think first and foremost, we must acknowledge that very many countries, including Uganda, have got a very progressive constitution. In fact, when you look at how the framers crafted the Ugandan constitution in 1995, it was very consultative. They had different representation from all quarters of the country, and the constitution as was in 1995 was what very many Ugandans wanted. But of course, along the way, which is actually similar to other jurisdictions, or or at least what we've seen in other jurisdictions, is I think what makes what actually aids and abates the undermining of progressive constitutions is primarily one. Either you have a leader who has been in power for long, and because he has to stay in power for an indefinite period of time, then there are certain provisions that may have to be amended, like is the case in with the Ugandan constitution. And then two, you could have ideally, when you look at many constitutions, there is this aspect of separation of powers. So the presumption is that the judiciary should actually act independently. But when you look at the constitution, the composition and constitution of Uganda's judiciary, I mean, at one point in time, we had a former state minister of defense being the deputy chief justice, right? So ideally in any progressive, and that was ideally in any progressive, or put simply, you can't have one Mheshimiwa Murkomen tomorrow being the Deputy Chief Justice or the Chief Justice, because there is information that you may stumble on serving on this other side of government that may impede your ability actually to independently exercise your judicial authority. So back to your question, so what has happened in the case of Uganda is you find that, I mean, some of the judges have been allegedly called, pro-regime judges. So that may explain why sometimes the cases, critical constitutional questions take a long time, or why the state has actually been able to amend certain provisions. And that is actually not so far from other jurisdictions, because what is actually happening there is not new.
No.
So what that means is that because states can actually have engineered a way in which to circumvent constitutional provisions, then you undermine the key provisions of the constitution, and such violations would actually continue to subsist. I mean, you do remember some time, I think last year, or even I think they were in there after the 2022 election. No, actually I think last year.
Yeah.
You remember there was talk in Kenya of wanting to try to amend the Kenyan constitution. But by extension, the thing we have to, you have to appreciate is that, you see, you learn bad habits from your neighbors, right? So when you have bad neighbors, the chance, if CT was my neighbor and he's a very bad neighbor and he's doing all these bad things, there's a high possibility that I might pick a leaf, and maybe that is why you're seeing some of the bad habits being replicated.
The sitting next to you is not with
yes. Something's going to rub off somewhere.
And that just reminds me, if I may just ask, because as any other curious listener, I want to just bring out the case in point of the 36. Were there 36 about members of the Ugandan opposition? I think that is the Forum for Democratic Change, FDC.
Yes.
Now, this particular people were in Kenya. Again,
in
Kisumu, right? Yes. They had traveled to Kenya, city Kisumu, for a training course, according to their lawyers then, but were deported back to neighboring Uganda, where authorities charged them with terrorism-related, offenses. I am curious to understand how are this? How did that case go? Was it truly a terrorism, kind of training? And to again bring Kenya into that conversation, and also what are the charges that Besigye is facing for some of the listeners who are still getting in tune with what exactly is his offense, because day in, day out, it's always quite repetitive that he is in for something. Which one has he committed this time?
So let me just start. By answering your question in reference to the 36 Ugandans who had actually come to the training were actually the charges actually preferred against them were actually quite baffling, because considering that those 36 Ugandans actually traveled by road and were cleared through the border points and got into Kenya and were received by their Kenyan counterparts through the border port. So now to turn around and actually what happened was that they were abducted from Kisumu, taken back to Kampala, and actually tried. So I mean, it beats logic, because you're like, so these fellows actually passed here. So if they actually had an offense, if they had committed some serious crimes, then it would have been hard for them actually to leave.
In fact, they were arguing that they drew the Kenyan security forces' attention as they were suspected to be engaging in some covert activities that were subversive.
And that also and that just drives that whole aspect of, you can be an aid and abettor to a violation based on the way the way you conduct yourself, and that's just another example of how Kenya cannot absorb itself from this whole conversation of actually, playing a critical role in having Dr. Besigye taken back to be tried in the court-martial. So that is just another example of how the authorities here must have facilitated their counterparts to take back those Ugandans to be tried. But back to you, and that case is still ongoing.
Okay.
Of course, it would be, ideally it should be decided on its merits, and I don't think those Ugandans will be tried of any specific, capable of commission of any offense, because ideally, when somebody is tried in a court of law for an offense, you must prove the ingredients of that offense. So when you come to Dr. Besige's case, I don't think even the lawyers for the General Court Martial will be able to get the ingredients of the offense.
To get something to stick.
Yes, because the offense you're trying to accuse him of, you're alleging it was not even committed within jurisdiction. But so what they're trying to do is, of course, there's been talk that they want to try him for treason or this or that. But you see, even in as much as the Ugandan Penal Code provides for treason, and in as much as the UPDF Act provides for what the crimes that you can try an individual for, the quick question here we have to ask ourselves is Dr. Kizza Besigye an active military officer? He is not. Now, if he's not an active military officer, it simply means that you cannot try him in the General Court Martial. That matter has been settled and sealed by the Supreme Court as of 31st of this year. So as is, and actually we did support the legal team to actually submit, led by Honorable Kenya Human Rights Commission supported the legal team led by Honorable Martha Karua to submit an application for writ of habeas corpus, because actually what should have happened is when the Supreme Court a decision was arrived at, then Dr. Besigye should have, and by extension, all other civilians being tried by military courts should have been transferred to civilian courts. That did not happen. So that explains why we opted to go for the writ of habeas corpus. So writ of habeas corpus is produce somebody dead or alive, before the court of law.
Okay.
And that explains why, so ideally, ideal as we speak today, Dr. Besigye should be presented before a civilian court. And if there are any merits of the case against him by the state, then they should be argued out and let the court decide based on what is being presented to them. But on the face of it, and based on the procedure on how the matter arrived in court, it's riddled with illegalities. And
I want to look at statements that were made by the president of Uganda just a couple of days ago, and actually yesterday. This was done on social media, and as well as Muhoozi Kainerugaba, his son, did make a statement yesterday. I think it was interesting. It may not. When we try to dissect it, it doesn't sound very pretty, because your desire is to be on the right side. But what could be the reason? Beyond just what we have said, brute force, where you want things to go your way and you don't want any criticism of the administration, what would be the reason where we have accusations of abrogation of human rights flying all over the place, but still you hold fast to a position which talks about attempted treasonous acts? Would one be so foolish, for want of a better word, to hold on to a particular position in broad daylight for 96 days, if there was nothing, absolutely nothing, that had been suggested, done, or planned?
Thanks for that question, Du. I think, first and foremost, yes, you're right. The president of Uganda actually did share on his X handle. He did express his dissatisfaction with the judgment that was issued by the Supreme Court on the 31st of January. And the same sentiments were shared by the Chief of Defense Forces, who happens to be his son, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba. But you see, the thing is, Du, you want to believe that actually the reality is that Uganda is a law-abiding country that is governed by the Constitution, and that same Constitution is the one that bestows power on the person of the president, and by extension creates, the other arms of government, including the judiciary, and by extension the Supreme Court. And that very same Constitution says that you have to obey the decision of the Supreme Court. So it can't be that ideally, if you are not satisfied with the decision of the Supreme Court, the unfortunate reality is that is the final court of
that's the court of last resort.
Yes, the court of yes, that's the apex for the last court. So beyond that, you can't go further. And I mean, if you flip it the other way around, and see it, and I mean, Dr. Besigye has challenged presidential elections before, and it was not on his favor. And well, he did not say. I mean, he accepted the decision of the court. So ideally, what we would expect is that the president, and by extension, those in the establishment would actually would have to actually accept the decision of the court. So unless otherwise, the other only recourse is you can actually entertain this matter in a civilian court and let the case be heard on its merits, if any. But as is, I mean, you could say that we will not obey the Supreme Court, blah blah blah. But well, there's only that much you can say, because the practical reality is in as much and which is what they've done by extension is, yes, they have actually are still holding him. They're actually still holding him against his will. And when you look at what is happening is, from the Supreme Court ruling, there are key things that the government has not addressed. And there's just a series of questions when you look at the Supreme Court judgment. The first is, I mean, under what framework is Dr. Besigye being continually held? Yeah? Because I mean, the answer is simple. There's no framework, and his continued holding is
under threat.
No. CT, when you look at the constitution of Uganda, yes, it does provide for national security, but then that provision does not circumvent the provisions enshrined under the Bill of Rights of the 1995 Constitution.
I'm going somewhere with this.
Yes.
You see, it's a question, this is a round-robin question that we'll ask ourselves as Africans. But the rule of law will be aspirational for as long as the citizens don't understand their sovereignty and what it means. Because the real check to power is not parliamentarians or the opposition party. No. It is the citizenry.
Yes.
When the elected leaders know that they'll be held to account, they behave. When they know they don't have to be held to account, or they will be supported by the same citizenry, when they do what they like, then what we see is an upsurge and a growth and an institutionalization of impunity. That's what we see.
Yes.
So all that seems to be happening on this continent in one way or the other, despite our shouting loudly that we are democracies, is monarchies have started creeping in slowly, gently, but most assuredly. Because if you look at the behaviors of monarchies and how it is that they existed, there was an absolutism about it.
Yes.
In fact, they gave themselves qualities that you'd give a deity. Okay? And once an individual who is human like you becomes a deity, then just the very concept of freedom and democracy goes out of the window completely, because they are everything. They are the rule of law. They are the final word. It is them. Now, the check and balance comes about when people... You see, the very leaders we're talking about understood this. That is why they led the insurrections that they led.
Yes.
Because they figured this thing is not working. Okay? And so they brought into being the very thing that they wanted. And now the strange thing, they're becoming the very thing they did not want.
They didn't want.
Yes.
Or what they fought against previously.
Yes. I think, just to respond, I think power is like, or authority is like a poison chalice. You know, the longer you stay, you know, the more it poisons you. And if you look around Africa, I mean, most of the presidents who have stayed on for long, who have held a firm grip of power, have outrightly been autocratic and repressive. I mean, look at President Paul Biya. I mean, or look around the world. I mean, and around the continent. You know, all these leaders who have been there for a long time. I mean, it's strange that that you know, a leader's been there for, let's say, 10, 15, 20 years, and then citizens are more than happy to let him or her, you know. So, like I said, power is like a poison chalice. The longer you have a leader, then the more, you know, the systems that are put in place become weakened. Ideally, in any progressive democracy, we do have the doctrine of separation of powers that should be able to check the three arms of government. The judiciary should play an instrumental role in trying to interpret repressive decisions, policy provisions by either legislators or the executive, and that is what has happened in Uganda.
For the people who listen, who watch every day and say, should these rights be held, or how should these rights be held, what would be your message to them really quickly?
I think my message to them is to the people, especially to Ugandans and also to other Africans or even Kenyans, is that they should be optimistic, because first and foremost, I must say, nothing lasts forever. We have seen repressive regimes that have come to pass, and we must be optimistic. We must follow the rule of law. And it is my hope and prayer that that Kizza Besigye will enjoy the rights that is guaranteed in the Constitution, and that he will be vindicated of any accusations that is being subjected to. Yes.
Martin Mavenjina is a senior program advisor, transitional justice at the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, and has been our guest this hour, looking into some of these issues that do plague nations. Thank you for being here this morning and sharing those insights with us, and let's see how things progress over the coming weeks. Asante sana.
Okay. Thank you, CT. Thank you.
Dorice. Good morning,
Dorice.
everybody.
Yes.
It's 8 a.m.
Yeah.
Newswire, I'm Leah Umbaga. The president of the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly, UNGA, Philemon Young, is set for a 5-day visit in the country. During his stay, Young will hold high-level meetings with President William Ruto, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, and other senior government officials. The discussions will focus on strengthening cooperation between Kenya and the United Nations, reinforcing Kenya's pivotal role in multilateral diplomacy and advancing key global and regional priorities. Attorney General Dorcas Oduor has asked the High Court to dismiss a petition seeking to bar Adams Olo from assuming his role as a member of the selection panel to hire new IBC commissioners. She argues that the petition by city lawyer Apollo Mboya has not provided any evidence to show Olo does not meet the requirements needed for the position. Olo has denied allegations he was an advisor to President William Ruto at the time of his appointment to the IBC selection panel. In a fresh application before the High Court, Olo is demanding that the court strikes out the petition. Trans Nzoia County DCI officers are investigating allegations of abductions involving a high-ranking county government official who is accused of using 4 men to carry out their atrocities following an online message criticizing his actions. According to the victim, Abid Muhammad, the men entered his business premises and ordered him to accompany them before beating him up.
Ni kazi yangu pale line moja. Wakati nilifungua hivi wakaingia, walikuwa 4. Wakaniambia hao ni polisi, wako na kesi na mimi nafaa nini nijibu. Nikauliza polisi wa wapi? Wakaniambia hao ni enforcement officers. Nikamwambia okay, produce your identification cards, wako nazo. So wakaanza kunibuli hapo, kinivutavuta. Tukaenda nao mpaka isolated room. Wakaa hapo wakaniuliza ni kwa nini wewe unalima mama yetu. Walikuwa na refer kwa waziri wa county, the embattled CSM mwenye alikuwa impeached over misappropriation, corruption. Wakatoa screenshot wakinionyesha maopinion. Makosa yao kubwa ni kwamba nilimpinga kwamba huyu mama kwa incompetent. This position needs somebody suitable more than this lady. That's when they started beating me. Mafimbo wakinikanyaga miguu, kiangalia have visible injuries mpaka saizi kwa miguu. Sometimes I fainted.
Mohanda now feels that his life is in danger.
So I'm appealing to the national government to intervene in this matter because I no longer feel safe. My workplace, hata watu walikusikiza makasoma wangu wakuji because they thought I was a criminal. I don't work because kama watu wanaweza kuja mchana kama saa 4 kuja kuni-abduct mchana, imagine what can they do at night. So I'm appealing to the national government as well, DCI, NIS and other security apparatus to intervene into this matter. I no longer feel safe. If they can guarantee me my safety, I will be grateful.
This is an incident that has been denounced by youth groups in the county.
I'm in solidarity with my friend Abut. Tumesikitika kushika kijana mdogo hivi kuenda kumfanyia yenye walimfanyia. Tunakashifu sana.
Tulikuwa tunaomba kwa serikali yetu kutulinda sisi kama vijana. Tunatumanisha mtu anakuja kushika na hana uniform. Vijana tunaumizwa, tunatendea sio mema.
Naomba viongozi pia wakubali kukosolewa. Kenya iko na freedom of expression na opinion ya kila mmoja inakubalika towards a certain event. Mtu akija kuarrest lazima ajieleze. Tumekuja, makosa yako ni tuko na either arresting warrant, searching warrant lakini sio mtu mwenyewe kuja kutafuta group fulani ya watu wakuja wakushike na waende nawe mahali fulani kwenda kufanyia unyama usiokuwa wa kawaida. Juu watu wengi Kenya wamepatikana wameuawa.
However, the officer, whose name has been withheld due to the seriousness of the allegations and the fact that the case is in court, has denied the allegations, saying she may file another defamation case. Detectives from Kirinyaga West have arrested 29-year-old Samuel Kinyua in connection with a robbery with violence incident that occurred in Sagana last month. On the night of the robbery, Kinyua and an accomplice reportedly broke into the complainant's home through the rear kitchen door. The attackers then stole 2 mobile phones, a 50-inch television, a microwave, and the complainant's sky blue Honda Fit. The robbers claimed they had been sent by a former house help who had recently left after a disagreement to collect an unpaid salary of 1,800 Kenya shillings. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
The latest news from around the 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Don't wait for payday. So why should you? Picture this. You or a loved one falls sick. The hospital bill sky high. The stress overwhelming. But with Jubilee Health Insurance, you don't have to panic. Affordable health covers from just 200 shillings per month. Lipa pole pole. Get covered now. Pay in easy installments. Access to over 800 hospitals plus telemedicine and free drug delivery. SMS Health to 40643. Call 0709 949 000 or visit www.jubileeinsurance.com. Jubilee Health Insurance. Your health, your peace of mind.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 7 minutes after 8 o'clock into the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this Wednesday morning. And we're getting into a mortgages conversation. And we already know what the numbers are and how they're telling us, certain things, too low numbers. But, the guys with the magic wand are here this morning. And we'll tell you about that in just a moment. But you know what? A health emergency could come at any time. And with Jubilee Health Insurance, we're saying, you know what? Cover Bora Medical Cover. It's a budget-friendly inpatient hospitalization cover, isn't it? Now, it starts from 6,200 shillings per year for individuals and 12,600 per year for a family of up to 5 individuals. This is pretty nifty stuff. Affordable inpatient-only cover with limits of 250,000, 350,000 or 500,000 shillings. Now, there's also an inbuilt maternity and last expense benefit. There's minimal waiting period and no health checkups required. You get your card, you get your premiums done, and you get in and you start. So, we need you to send health to 40643. That's health to 40643 or call 0709 949 000 or log on to www.jubileeinsurance.com. All that information, one place. Go to the website, send a message or give a call, and don't wait for that medical emergency to come. You can be prepared for it. All right. Our friends from Diamond Trust Bank are here this morning, and Eva Awino is the head of mortgages DTB. Eva, let me just tell you, we've been waiting for you.
Glad to be here.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
You're in the hot seat of the Situation Room, and I know that you have, you're bringing them hot for us this morning for us to be able to understand how this is all working. But let's give you a little bit of work to do this morning.
All right.
It's fun stuff, I promise. CT goes around the continent every week. Right?
I see. Okay.
It's a mystery of how he does it. But you who are in this magic wand business of giving us these great mortgages, you also understand. So
Absolutely.
You're in good company.
All right. Fantastic.
From a new country is a new proverb every week. He'll tell us what that proverb is, and then you will interpret it for us.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I told you a little bit of work.
Take it away.
Fun time.
Our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the country of Niger. Okay? It's a republic. Huge country. In terms of landmass, largest on the continent. The unfortunate thing, or the spectacular thing about it, is that 80% of that land is desert. You hear the Sahara Desert? Yeah, 80% of the landmass of Niger is part of the Sahara Desert. Right. We had a coup recently. Didn't go down well with other African leaders. But, here we are. Now the proverb. Only God can chase away flies from a tailless cow.
Should. Say that again.
Only God can chase away flies from a tailless cow.
City cupboard. I mean, well, that's a new one. Never been heard before.
Okay, surely.
Surely.
You've come across cows.
I've come across cows. I know about God.
Yes, you've come across the tails
but the combination of and flies. I know about flies.
Exactly.
We're getting somewhere.
So yes, that's why I'm saying yes. So you do know what this thing could mean. What we want is your opinion, really.
There's no right or wrong answer, really.
There's no wrong. Okay. Let's see. Say that again, City.
I will say it again. Only God can chase away flies from a tailless cow.
Oh, okay. Maybe I have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Can I translate it in my own way?
Please, absolutely.
That's what we want, actually.
I think it says, I think the meaning of that is, from where I sit, only DTB can get you into that home.
Smart.
That's why you're the head of mortgage.
Smart.
Yeah, I mean, that's my translation.
I didn't see
Any interpretation.
But yes.
That's why you are. That's why you are.
Okay.
Well done. And that's why you're here this morning. 1,000 points to you. Do with them as you wish.
I love it.
Okay. So, I mean, for a couple of days, we've been talking about, mortgages by DTB.
Right.
And then allowing us to look into the broader picture of, what Kenyans can do to be able to own a space that you call home, your little slice of heaven that's yours.
Right.
And so just give us an overview. Why go into this particular area and say, okay, let's provide solutions for Kenyans in terms of what can actually happen for you to own your own? Let's start with the why before we go to the what.
All right. So certainly everybody wishes to have a home to call their own, right? The difference is the biggest challenge has been affordability, right? In terms of the kind of property that is out there for people to be able to buy, and two, the finances really to be able to buy that kind of property. So the reason why we have offered these solutions to people is so that everybody can be able to have a home to call their own, right? And so this solution is open for everybody within all ranges of income. And I use specifically the word income because it could be from salary, it could be from business, it could be from, income from out there, like Kenyan working in the diaspora. So I specifically use income because it could be from any of those sources. Right.
Okay. And so then we get to the what. So then what have you been able to say, okay, we understand that there's a problem here. Let's now be the ones to give you a very good solution to it.
Okay. So to address issues around affordability, one, we say, it's difficult to save money now. There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of things on the Kenyan plate, And so we're saying, if you haven't saved any money, it's all right. Come as you are. Don't look for it anyway. Don't even borrow it from anywhere. Just come as you are. And we're able to offer up to 105% financing. And this would essentially take care of the cost of the house fully. And then we all know there's other costs associated with owning a home. And so that would cover for the property, purchase of the property, and the cost associated. All right? Then further on, we're saying, okay, the interest rates have been over the roof for a while. We are beginning to see that coming down, but not as low as we are able to give. So we are able to give up to 9% fixed. Remember the word fixed. Rates have fluctuated over a period of time. We've seen people borrow 13, then it went to 15, 17, up to 21, right? And so we're saying the 9 is fixed. It will never change for the period of the mortgage. right? So if you take 9 for 15 years, you know you will pay at 9%. Then further, we know that, you want to spread that repayment so that it's comfortable for you.
Yes.
And so we're saying we can give it up to you for 25 years, up to 25 years. But further, we are saying, look, if you come across some money somewhere, a windfall, I mean, you've done some deals here and there, legitimate.
Of course.
And you want to settle that off. I mean, we say, bring the money, pay off, and walk on, pick your keys, and, we will remove ourselves from the title, and the property is fully owned by you. So those are some of the solutions that we've been able, because having looked at what Kenyans have struggled with over a period of time in terms of trying to own a home, we figured that those are some of the key pain points that Kenyans have struggled with. And so coming up with that kind of tailor-made solution, I believe that will give Kenyans an opportunity to have a home to call their own.
Tell us a little bit about Diamond Trust Bank. How did it begin, and why the name Diamond Trust?
First, we all know about diamonds, right?
Oh yeah, they are forever. No, that's James Bond.
Diamonds are forever.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it is forever. And then you can trust diamonds. They are forever, And so we are forever here, and you can trust that we are forever here to walk with you the journey towards improving your life, really, basically. And it's not just about owning a home. Your dream could be owning a car. We are there. Your dream could be, school fees, for example. We are there. Your dream could be, I'm looking for some unsecured facility. I just want to quickly do something, travel, for example. We have that solution. So you can trust us to be able to offer any solution that you would be looking for out here. If you're looking for a card, I'm traveling quickly and I'll need to transact and I cannot access my savings at this point in time. I don't want to break my fixed deposit. You will have your credit card. So it is a one-stop shop.
Right.
And so you can trust that, the Diamond herein is able to give you all these solutions. Yeah.
I'm curious because you see, when it talks about decent housing, our own government has been talking about that from the onset. So they took over power, the bottom-up economic model.
Right.
And it's all about, we're building these houses for you, and they're affordable houses. And Kenyans are still saying, is it really affordable?
Yeah.
They're trying to cut their heads around it. Now, if I ask why I would come to you and not other banks or any other facility for that matter, or even the government's option, I know you've given us a glimpse of what it is that you offer, but if you give it in comparison as to why I should pick DTB, and that you are unique for me to actually convince myself and my family to trust you.
Okay.
Yes.
So you've actually said it. There's been these stories about affordable property coming up. But people don't really know where these properties are, isn't it?
Yes.
If I asked you today, tell me a 3 million property, you'd have to crack your brain, right?
Or Google.
So what we do, other than just offering you this solution, we actually take you to the places where you'll find these houses. So what we've done over and above the solution, the financial solution that we are able to offer, we have partnered with developers and estate agents, really, and we have vetted them. So we are not just saying go there and go here and pick this one. No, we have vetted them, and we have then gone on to partner with them such that if you're looking for property and you don't know where to look, we can take you there as an individual. We also organize property tours where we take customers around, and you really want to see a couple before you make your decision. Property is forever, just like diamond.
Yeah.
So you want to be sure that you've seen and picked the best. So we take you around, we give you the options, and eventually help you make decisions. And besides that, we work with professionals. So we have valuers, we have lawyers. So we're not just saying, okay, here's the property we've identified, we trust this developer, go on, come and make your application. No. So we work with valuers who will then step in to check we'll do a search on the property to determine true ownership of that property. They will check if there's any encumbrances. We've seen situations where people have bought property and then before you know it, there's a bulldozer taking down your property.
Because it's on riparian land
or
or something.
The papers.
Absolutely. So we work with professionals to check such for such encumbrances, and if there's an issue, then they will tell you you need to back off this one. Let's check again. We have lawyers to help you, with the registration of the properties. They also do a second search just to be sure. And out of this, then there's a lot of information that comes out. Is this property charged to a bank? And it could be, and there's nothing wrong with me selling a property that is charged to a bank. But is the bank aware? Such that when we get to the point of discharging on the other side, that there will be no issue. So those are the things that they will look out for. So over and above just, giving you money, over and above just showing you their property, we have a panel of professionals who will then just do those checks for you, because you may look at a title and see that, okay, this belongs to Eva, but I mean, we are who we are as Kenyans.
So then how do when you're looking at the amounts that you give for mortgage, how do you determine that?
Okay.
Because I mean, just having conversations with you over the last couple of days is that, so I don't have to have an account with DTB?
Not at the point of application. No.
Okay. Yeah. How then do you now say, okay, so I want this mansion in the sky, essentially. How do you say, well, we're going to give you a mortgage that fits you? How do you go through that whole process?
All right. So we will ask a bit of questions. So we'll ask questions around how much your income is and what is the source of it. So if it's salaried, for example, we will ask for your pay slips, we will ask for your bank statements, and we'll be able to do some workings around that. Normally, if you're salaried, we'll take about 65% of your gross income to determine what you can commit towards payment of a home loan, right? If your income is from business, we'll again do turnovers and pick some percentage out of it to determine how much you can qualify for. And the same applies for Kenyans in the diaspora. So if you're in business, the same follows. If you're employed, the same structure follows. So we'll basically ask for your documentation, because if, for example, you're not banking with DTB, we are able to then ask for those documentation and determine based on whatever we see. If you're banked with DTB, then we are able to pick that information from our system and do the workings together and show you how much you then are eligible for.
So this 105%,
right,
is a very interesting figure, right? Because somebody's going to ask, okay, so 100% is great,
right?
But then you get to 105%. Why on earth would you do that?
Yeah, okay. So the 100 would essentially cover for the cost of the house, right? A lot of the players are doing up to 90% financing, and so you have to do a down payment and then additionally look for the costs, closing costs. So the 100 will cover for the price of the house. The 5 will cover for the costs of the closing costs. So herein we are talking about stamp duty. We are also talking about valuation fee. We're also talking about legal fee, because remember, there's lawyers involved and there's valuers involved. There's insurance that comes into play, so that if in the event that, God forbid, you lose your source of income through retrenchment, then insurance would come in to pay for a period of 9 months. God forbid you have permanent disability out of an accident or illness, again, insurance will come in to pay the outstanding mortgage in full. And if you pass on, God forbid, again, touch wood, insurance will pay for the full mortgage, and so your family will not be bothered, your family will not be disturbed. The bank will discharge the title to whomever you listed as your next of kin.
Okay. So essentially you're saying that you could get into a mortgage agreement and you wouldn't have to spend a penny from your pocket.
Absolutely.
Until you now start paying, every month.
Installments once we disburse to the seller of the property.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. I'm just going to ask this for the first time, home buyers who are anxious but excited. It's a lot of emotions when you want to begin.
Indeed.
And there's that fear of all the, God forbid, things that might happen.
Yes.
You don't want to leave your family in a certain state, or you don't want to regret growing up
yes, absolutely,
with it. and someone would ask, so what is the kind of support that you give to first-time buyers?
Right.
What kind of understanding does DTB have that will make it essentially comfortable to take this great but very important life, step?
Yes. Okay, so like I said, one of the things that I said earlier is that first of all, walk with you the journey towards identifying a home.
Yes.
If you haven't yet identified, that also comes with anxiety. I mean, you
Yes.
don't know if this seller is legit. You don't know if this property is legit. You don't know if it's been done up to standards. You don't know if it's approved in the first place. So we help with that as a first-time homeowner. The other thing is we walk you through the journey. We paint the picture. If you have seen the DTB application form, at the back of it shows you the journey, each step. So we actually take you through each of those steps, what it will mean and how much time it will take. For example, we will tell you once you submit all your application, within 72 hours you will have feedback as to whether you've been approved or not, or whether you need to improve your information or documentation. And then we'll tell you thereafter we will carry out evaluation, and this will take X number of days. So we actually sort of like paint a picture of what that will look like, because normally when you have applied for even the smallest facility, you're very anxious.
Yes.
You're not sure whether you'll be approved, how long it will take,
Yeah.
So we, at every step, tell you now this is done, we're going to this step, and it will take this much time. So even as you get into it, you know how much time you expect this to take.
So there's no uncertainty, no gap.
There's no uncertainty. And then the other thing we actually do tell you is these stories that we keep hearing. That, one of the fears is that this will hold me down for 25 years. I mean, it sounds like a long time, right?
Yeah, quite.
Quite a long time. But yet we are living somewhere, right? And you're paying for the space that you're living in. And perhaps, God knows, I don't know how long I've paid for the space that I live in. I mean, I would have paid for the space that I live in, but you're paying nonetheless.
Yeah.
If it's rent, it's still going to hold you.
True.
Right? So 25 years with the option of early settlement is pretty decent, right? And so that we take away that, that kind of anxiety of 25 years, will I be alive? Will I still have a job? Will I be able to continue servicing this facility? So we just give you the options around that. The other thing that brings a lot of anxiety is, what if I lose my source of income?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, will you auction me?
Yeah.
And that's the first thing that comes to anybody's mind. What if, today, if I don't have a job, I'll be auctioned. And
Yes.
my family will be thrown out,
Yes.
know. And so one of the things that we've done is introduce the retrenchment option insurance that then covers you in case you lose your job through retrenchment. Then you're covered for at least a period of 9 months, for which then you can be able to reorganize yourself. And in that period, if you see that there's no light at the end of the tunnel, come back to us and say, hey, I know my insurance has paid for 4 months. I still don't see how this is going to end after the 9 months. Can we have a conversation? How can you support me? And one of the things we do is, we can say, okay, do you have some income on the side? How much is it? So assuming you're paying 40,000 and you have some income that can give you 15,000, then we can be able to restructure that facility so that it's within what you're comfortably able to raise every month.
Yeah.
Then you may say, okay, actually, Eva, I feel like this is giving me a lot of pressure. I'd rather offload it.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And so we will say, okay, that's an option. How would you like us to do this? Do you want to look for a buyer? Do you need support from us in looking for a buyer? Because one of the things that, remember I said, is to help customers identify homes.
Yes.
So we will put it on our property listing that we normally share out to our staff and our customers, and it will be there. And so we'll, mention that property to our customers, and then we'll organize a private meeting once we get a potential customers, and you will, have your conversations.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you do, and is there a possibility? I'm seeing a couple of questions coming in here, even as we get to others.
Right.
Can you get a mortgage for construction? Say you have a piece of land, right? So I want to take a mortgage because that's what it is essentially, isn't it? It's gonna,
absolutely,
right? To put up a house on a piece of land that I already own. Does ETB wave the magic wand for that as well?
At the moment, we don't. It is a solution that is in the kitchen as we speak. So look out for it towards the end of the year because it needs a lot of professionalism around it. Some professionals around the construction, QSs, etc. So it's in the kitchen as we speak, but towards the end of the year, we will have the solution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Let's take a break at that point. Eva Retemo is the head of mortgages with DTB this morning. We're looking at, the options that you have, and we'll come in and look at a lot more of that and what you're able to take advantage of. Do you like fruit, Eva?
I do love fruit.
You love fruit? Okay. Do you like taking a break every now and then from stuff?
Absolutely.
So when you were telling us some of these things, I thought to myself, this is really a great moment for us to think about some of these things and say, okay, these are things that you can actually do.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Delamere yogurt also gives you an opportunity to have an moment.
I love it.
So there is a wild berry variation of the Delamere yogurt. It's real fruit. The berries that you see there inside the yogurt. And we'd like you to have some of that this morning and have an moment when you take a break from work, when you take a break in traffic, whatever you do, have an moment with Delamere, with us.
My lunch is set.
That you see.
Healthy.
This is why you are where you are, because you get it.
Here we are. Thank you, City. Thank you.
You definitely get it. All right, we'll take a break on that and our conversations continue. Let me remind you also that you don't have to wait for that health emergency to take place before you do something about it. Jubilee Insurance says, you know what, there are a number of things that we can actually do to make sure that you're in step and that you're in stride with your health and things that you would have to take into consideration. So we're looking at the J plan under Jubilee Insurance, and that is J Care Johari. And this is for individuals and families looking for affordability and convenience. The premium, 25,000 shillings per year. Inpatient cover, 200k to 400k, check. Outpatient cover, 40k to 50k, also in there for you. Online group, no paperwork or medical checkups, and it can also cover pre-existing conditions, and you have access to free drug delivery. What do I need you to do? I need you today to send the word health to 40643 or call 0709 949 000 and visit www.jubileeinsurance.com.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to...
Some days just have you feeling, you know the ones. Very few aha moments. Just moments. Maybe even a few Because how can a day this good feel so meh? But then, you realize your moment of escape is a cup of indulgence away.
Delamere. Get lost in rich, creamy, flavorful bliss with every spoonful of Delamere real fruit yogurt. Indulge in the moment.
Running a business in Kenya and struggling with slow, expensive cross-border payments? With Verto, you can send and receive money globally, faster, cheaper, and hassle-free. Pay suppliers, collect payments, and expand internationally with ease. 49 currencies, 190 plus countries. One powerful platform. Better rates, faster settlements, secure transactions. Global payments made easy. Sign up today at www.vertofx.com. Verto, your global business payments partner.
The weather with SpiceFM.
Sunny conditions in Nairobi, it's 18 degrees, and it's 15 and sunny in Nakuru, 17 and sunny in Nyeri, with sunny conditions at 19 in Eldoret. Mombasa is sunny at 26, with 28 and sunny conditions in Malindi. 21 and sunny into Kisumu, while at 21 it's sunny in Kakamega. Kampala is sunny at 22, going to highs of 30, and Dar es Salaam at 28 is sunny this morning. 27 and sunny in Mogadishu, with 16 and sunny conditions in Addis Ababa. The rain continues in Johannesburg at 18, and we're looking to cloudy conditions at 28 in Lagos and 24 and cloudy in Kinshasa.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Traffic doing what it would normally do on a Wednesday morning, and it's very, very busy on Langata Road, coming in from Uhuru Gardens, joining with whatever is going on to Raila Odinga Way. So there's some traffic chugging along as you get towards the Nairobi Funeral Home Junction, roundabout there. And as you also get towards Uhuru Highway. That's also going to clog up Landys Road. In and outbound traffic is crazy this morning. Coming off of Thika Superhighway, we have traffic still coming in from Githurai, and as you get through past Kasarani and then out towards Survey, that's still heavy. There is traffic on Wangari Maathai Way this morning, heading in both directions toward Westlands and also towards Huru Highway into the city. And Kiambu Road traffic still continues for a while now. We'll see that chug along of traffic, so keeping an eye on all of that. Coming in from the Eastern Bypass, also pretty busy this morning, and touching on North Airport Road. Let's see what happens as we come out of traffic hour in a while. We'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Eva Retemo is the head of mortgages at DTB, and we're having that conversation this hour. We can paint the picture of, things, you come in, you get it sorted, but what are some of the challenges that folks going to go through when they come and they sit with you and have the conversation and say, okay, look, this is what I want to do, but I'm having an issue. What are some of those, and how do you deal with them? Eva?
Right. So some of the challenges are that when people come, sometimes they don't know that we offer the 105% solution. Mm-hmm. So they come stressed trying to look for, deposit, so that, they can start the journey. So how we do that is, present the 105 option to them. And that also gets them a bit relaxed. The other challenge that I've seen is people come and they don't meet the amounts that they would wish for, and they feel stuck. And so the solution that we give them, and that people also don't know about, is you can do a joint application with your partner. So if you're looking to buy a house of 10 million and your income can only allow you up to 8 million, for example, then we give you the solution of, doing a joint application with your spouse or your partner, if you wish. Another one that I have seen is, the anxiety that we've already talked about. How will this go? Will I have a solution? Will I be able to pay this to the end and stuff like that? Another is bad experiences that people have already had, and they're not sure. They know that they want to own a home, but they're just not sure how this will go. And so we have a team of mortgage experts that will definitely walk with you the journey end to end until you get the key to your home. Then they will sort of like set you free, you know what I mean? But it's not really setting you free, because then they continue the conversations, at some point you have paid down your facility, and you think, okay, I've seen piece of land somewhere and I don't have money, and I would wish to own that piece of land. So we'll give you the solution and say, you've paid down your mortgage to some level. Why not come and get an equity out of the room that you've already created?
Yeah.
You may feel that this mortgage has taken up all the space that I had on my payslip or my income, but we'll tell you, you've created some room between what you borrowed and how much you paid down to. So we say, come, let's do an equity release for you, and you can buy that piece of land at your comfort.
It's like music to the ears, but then there's another concern, and I want to bring it up just now. Yeah. There are concerns, and I like that you're trying as much as you can to ensure that every person that's listening is confident enough to actually approach DTB.
Right.
But there are concerns about hidden, and I don't know if you've heard of them.
I have.
Hidden or closing costs. Right. There's that fear of what is it that she's not telling us
she's
this
not
morning?
talking about. Right. Yeah.
Things like, I don't know if that applies in the mortgage here in Kenya, that stamp duty, the stamp duty, like government tax on property transactions, there's like a percentage, Apple.
There is.
So there's that fear. Could you please clarify?
Yeah.
So that people essentially have trust that they can trust.
They have all the information. Yeah, absolutely. People call it hidden costs.
Yes.
If you recall our earlier conversation, I said there's costs that come with owning a property. Remember?
Yes.
And I listed some of them, and I said there's valuation fee that will come therein. There's legal fees.
Yes.
There's stamp duty. There's the facility fee charged by the bank. There's what else? There's insurance. Therein. So those are actually the costs that come, that are associated with owning a property.
Why would they call them hidden?
I guess in the past, that information has not been put out there, right? So that you start the process and then you realize, oops, I need another, close to $1 million to be able to continue this transaction. So people in the past, I think there's been bad experiences in the past where people have not been given this information upfront.
Okay.
And so what we do, and if you've seen our form, that information is out there. In the event that Eva chooses to not give that information, as you're doing your application, you will definitely see it. But at Diamond Trust, we make sure that you have all the information before you make the decision.
Yeah, so it's transparent.
It's transparent through and through.
No manipulation.
No manipulation at all.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What do we hope? So there is Diamond Trust Bank that's doing its bit in terms of making sure that folks who want to be able to own property can do so.
Right.
And own a home, not just property, but own a home can do so.
Absolutely.
And then there's a larger picture whereby we're told, okay, well, you know what? I think the number, I don't know if it's ever risen beyond the 25,000, or maybe now going towards 30,000, or whatever the case may be, of people who actually own their homes in Kenya.
Right.
Right? So how is this, playing into that bigger picture? Is it? Or is it just DTB? It's just saying, okay, we're going to do what we can. But does it feed into that bigger picture of saying, across the country, more Kenyans should actually own their own homes if they can?
So there's a section of people who own property already, right? There's a larger section of people who don't own property. Of the larger group of people who don't own, the larger one is because of affordability. The other section is because of lack of information, right? So we play into all of those spaces, including those who already own property. You don't stop at one property. We have dreams of investing big time, So this is not just for first-time homeowners. We also have solutions for second-time, so if you have a property that you already own, you can get a second one if you wish to, and we are able to finance you for that. You may use the one that you already have to get a second one as an equity release. But also, if you have a facility with another institution and you feel like this is expensive and DTB is talking 9%, why not transfer that facility? So as long as that was disbursed in the last 3 years, then we're able to take it over at the rate of 9%, which is fixed. So we're also giving Kenyans an opportunity to, to pay their mortgage at an affordable interest rate.
Is this understanding you have with Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company? Tell us how this works.
So KMRC, as we know it, Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company, come in to fund DTB, for example. So they give funds at a very cheap cost, and so that is how we are able to lend at the rate of 9%. Normally, we understand how banks work. The money we hold is not the bank's money per se; it's shareholders' money, right? So this is the money that we use to lend out, and it comes at a very high cost, right? So this KMRC funding is what has enabled us to be able to lend at this low interest rate that we're talking about.
Which means Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company actually have money which they can lend for long periods of time.
Absolutely.
At reasonable or low interest rates.
Right. That is accurate.
How about you break this down for a Gen Z?
What exactly?
Who is excited
about owning a property?
Yeah, because there's this conversation that will happen among young people. Like, renting is much cheaper right now,
right?
Than owning a home.
Yeah,
and they're thinking there's a certain age where you could put your money there, or as little as this. But right now, they're like, nah. I'd rather rent. It's cheaper than a mortgage. There's that notion that mortgage is huge and expensive. What do you tell a younger person?
So I would tell a younger person. First, we know Gen Zs are mostly self-employed now. They're influencers, they're content creators. We were able to finance them. So based on the income, as long as you can show proof of the income that you're earning, we're able to finance. But importantly, let me say this. How much do you think a 5 million home loan would you be paying for a 5 million home loan?
Annually?
Monthly.
Per month? What, 40,000? shillings?
Very close. Okay. 44.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Dude.
Yeah. So Gen Zs love to live a good life, right or wrong? They love good spaces.
And this is 44 over what period of time?
Of 25 years. Remember, the option of early settlement still stands. So you may take the 25 and pay even in 3 years if you wish to. Yeah. Nice. So it's not out of reach. It's not out of reach. It's so if you get a 3 million house, the repayment would be 25,000. Aren't we paying rent of 25,000?
Indeed. Oh, yes. Sometimes
Aren't
more.
we paying rent of sometimes more?
Yeah.
Up to 40, 50, 60, I mean.
Yes.
So it's not out of reach. It's available.
It's what's being done now anyway.
It's what's being done now. And people sit and think, oh, okay, we've had all that information, but it's out of reach for me. No, it's not out of reach. If you have your payslip or your income with you, do 65% of that, remove any deductions, see how much is left, and that is how much you can commit towards paying for a home loan. Now, if you're paying rent, put that back onto your income.
Yeah.
Put that back onto your income. So if you're taking a 5 million and you're paying 44,000 and you are paying 40 for your rent, what would you rather do?
No brainer there. Okay. So walk us through the process of somebody who does not have a DTB account. Comes into the say, okay, look, I want to. I've heard of this because they will hear. They're listening
absolutely.
now.
Yes, indeed.
Walk us through the process of somebody who doesn't have an account and what they have to do and how long it's going to take for you to actually, ink the deal.
Okay. So first we will ask for information. We'll ask about your source of income. So let's assume you're employed. We will ask for your documentation. We will ask for information. Before we even ask for documentation, we will engage you to understand your age, your source of income, whether you've identified a property or not, how much it's going for, and how much you're looking to borrow. We have people who don't want to borrow the full amount. Right? So we'd ask how much you want to borrow.
Yes.
And once you've given us that information, then we'd come to you. You don't need to come to us. We'll come to you. So once you've given us that information, then we will begin asking for documentation to support the information that you've given us. So we'll be asking for your 3 months pay slips. We'll ask for your 6 months bank statements. We'll ask for a letter of introduction from your employer. We'll ask for your copy of ID and copy of PIN. And if you already have identified a property, we'll ask for a letter of offer from the vendor. So that then will help us, determine your eligibility. And so within 72 hours, we shall be able to come back to you and say, CT, yes, indeed, you can get your 8 million. So, and then now we will give you a letter of offer stipulating the terms of the home loan, right? And we will ask that you sit with your lawyer.
All right.
So that, they interpret these terms to you so that you're very clear on what you're signing up for. And then you will sign and the lawyer will sign and you will bring that back to us. Once you do that, we'll give instructions to a valuer of your choice from our panel. And then they will be in touch with you. They'll say, hey, where is this property? We need to do a survey on it. And so you will give them access to the property or link them up with the seller. They will do a valuation and they will send us a report. Depending on how fast the search results are out, they can give us a report within 4 days, 4 to 5 days. Once that is done, then we will give you a list of a panel of lawyers that you will select from. And then we will issue them instruction to now start the legal process of, charging the property and transferring title from the vendor to yourself and charging it to the bank.
Okay.
So that would essentially take, depending on where the property is. So if it is the Nairobi block, it will take about 90 days. If it is the outskirts, Machakos, Kajiado, Kiambu, that would take about 60 days. Because the registry there is not as busy.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So that is, so at every step, then we are able to give you an update and say, we have received the valuation report. We are now proceeding to the lawyer. Please select from this panel who you want to work with. And then we issue them instructions to progress.
So say the windfall happens year 7, whatever. And then, you're able to pay it back completely. How long would it then take for all of those things to be settled? You've paid the remaining amounts, and we are remembering that there are no penalties for paying in time.
Right.
How long would it take then for the property to then be put into your name and all of that settled?
Handed over fully.
Yeah. So remember, at the point of taking the facility, the title is in your name. It's in your name, but charged to the bank.
Okay.
Right? So what happens once you settle is the bank will discharge the property from DTB to just remove, that security. So that would take about 3 to a month to discharge the property.
Okay.
And then you can pick your title. Some people opt to keep the title in the bank. in the hope that perhaps they will want to do another investment and they can use that title to get extra money.
Okay.
But if you wish to, then you can discharge and pick your title.
Okay.
Right.
So there are folks who are not in Kenya who want to take an advantage, or take the advantage rather, of getting into a mortgage agreement and diaspora living. How does this process work for them?
So same way, we will send them information on email. Some normally want to wait and come and then we have a sit down. But some will quickly just do an email to us at mortgages@dtbafrica.com. They will ask and then somebody will be in touch with them. So either on email, on WhatsApp because of the time differences, or phone calls really. So once we have asked the questions, relevant questions, they have sent the requisite documentation, we start the process, and the same follows. We update them, so they will send initially their application that need to be have been notarized. They will scan them to us so that we start the process. However, upon approval, we will ask that they send the original documents to us. So we are not insisting for you to send the original documents until at least you're sure that, okay, we are progressing. Then we'll ask that you send the original documents to us. We will also ask that you appoint a power of attorney to act on your behalf, because then you're not always in and out of the country.
Right.
So appoint somebody to act on your behalf.
This is a relationship I'm seeing here.
Absolutely.
DTB and the client,
Absolutely.
who could be City or myself.
Right.
Or Ndu, for that matter.
I like it.
And I just want to make it as simple as possible for the listener or the viewer to understand why it's not a very good idea to default. Why it's not a very good idea to break or, not be very loyal to this relationship.
Right.
And as far as you're speaking, your side of the bargain is essentially stuck on a family, being a good partner. So what about the other partner? Why it's not a good idea to essentially not be very honest, communicate if you ought to, if you're in a situation where you have to default, so that a stitch in time saves nine. So maybe just to, especially for the first time owners, first, why communication and instant communication be good, and that you're available for such communication, because not every cloud that comes is a silver lining. Sometimes it's really dark.
Right.
So how about that relationship and when to actually reach out to avoid, distorting the relationship?
Right. So it's important that you, when you're in a position to ensure that you're up to date with your payments. One, because then it becomes very expensive. Remember, there's interest that accrues and penalty interest if you fail to pay on time. So it becomes very expensive because then your installments then go higher unnecessarily. I mean, especially if you're in a position to pay. So it becomes very expensive for you. You end up paying more where you shouldn't, right? Now, it's also important to communicate immediately.
Okay.
You have lost your source of income, so that there's a work around it, so that you're not accruing penalty interest, and so and that your mortgage goes unpaid, right? So as soon as you communicate and we understand why you're in that situation, we're able to offer solutions that you would consider, like I'd mentioned earlier, so that you think about it. You're scared. You're not speaking. The bank is trying to reach out to you. You're not speaking. But guess what? You're living in anxiety.
Every day.
Imagine every knock at your door, you think the bank is here. But yet you have the option of just going as quickly as you can and engaging the bank and say, look, this is my new situation. How can you support me? Where you've been retrenched, we quickly, and we do it. We don't ask you to go and tell the insurance, for example.
All right.
The bank will do it. We will inform the insurance that Eva has this situation. Please process her retrenchment cover. Right? And we'll just come back to you and say it's been approved. It will be paid on a monthly basis for a period of 9 months. If it is a situation where somebody has lost, the borrower has passed on, then the family would just inform us. We will ask for certain documentation. We will process with the insurance and we'll say we have been paid by the insurance. We are discharging the title. The house is yours. Right. So I think importantly is to communicate.
Right.
Let me just ask the question, because when it comes to mortgages and matters of investment, there are many skeptics. This particular program that you now have,
right?
Have people called? Have people applied? have you approved any loans, or are we just talking about the future?
No. The future is here. The future is here. So yes, indeed, we get numerous queries through phone calls, customers walking into the branches, through the email that I've just talked about, which I will still share at the end.
And when they call, how do they tell you they got this information?
So say, hi, hello, I had you being mentioned on SpiceFM and talking about mortgage. Please, can I get more information? Can somebody call me on this number? Where can I meet you? You know, so they actually, I mean, it's I get very excited when I get an email or a phone call from somebody saying I had your product being mentioned on SpiceFM. I get very excited because, look, I mean, I don't listen to radio.
Yes.
So when I get that people actually listen to radio, I get very excited.
Yeah.
So numerous queries you've asked, is this for the future? No, the future is here. So we have 600 million in pipeline. January to date, 600 million.
Right. It's right. You have approved mortgages to the tune of 600
million.
That's what you're saying.
Did I say Kenyans want to own homes and they don't know how to do it? Yes, it's real.
Yes.
It's real. It's not a story. See, stories are jabba. You know, people want to own homes. So when you give that solution and they see that it's real, they come. They want to see for themselves. Forget what I've had on radio.
Yeah.
Is this real?
Yeah.
And so they're coming. We have numerous queries around this.
Yeah. Seeing is believing.
Seeing is believing.
And listening to Eva is the reality.
So some of the conventional ways are not used anymore, and we talk about accounts statements, right? Maybe not everybody has a bank account statement, but there are people who operate everything on mobile money.
Right.
So do you take that? Are those options?
We do take M-Pesa statements,
Okay.
and we will sit with you so that you highlight for us. Of course, we'll then separately do our own due diligence on that. Because M-Pesa, I mean, the narration is neither here nor there. So we'll need to sit with you for you to highlight for us which is the income that you've been receiving. So yes, the short answer is yes, we do consider M-Pesa statements.
Right. Okay. Why would there be and it's just going back to the diaspora, because there are a lot of folks who are from the diaspora listening and asking this particular question, is that you ask for a letter from your employer. There are folks who may not be in an office setting that will get a letter from HR, for example,
right?
But that you're working in a domestic, or you're working in a factory setting, which is it's good. There are people who bought houses, there are people who bought property and that kind of income. What kind of documentation would you get if you're working in a domestic situation, for example?
So we would ask for your work permit on the other side. If it's a domestic situation, then remember I said earlier we can look at business income.
Okay.
So that would fall in that category. So we would just be asking for your statements, really, and proof of that source of income. Right. So no, we don't lock them out. We actually have a lot of such customers from the diaspora.
Yeah, what I'm liking hearing is that you're not going to deal blanketly, and you stop me if I'm wrong. You're not going to deal blanketly with everybody, and that's why you say send us an email, come have a chat with us, because everybody's
different. You're absolutely
different.
right. You're absolutely right. So we are not saying no. This is the direction we are taking, and you must stay in this lane. We are saying we understand your situation could be different from City, from Evas, from whoever else. So we will appraise you based on your situation. Right.
Now there's concerns and fears, and I think I keep bringing that up. Of situations that turn around. They're not expected. You do due diligence. We have the legal team. I have my attorney with me.
Right.
But somehow, because we've seen a number of things happen. Private developers, what's been happening.
Right.
Land grabbing, and sometimes even political affiliations coming. Some very strong powers within, and someone asking, well, depending on how much investments I want to put in, when the worst hits. Does this friendship end there, or how does then the bank come in to either support and say, well, this was what we did, on your own, we can walk this journey with you in those worst circumstances? That I think there are 1 or 2 cases, perhaps 1% or none at all. Are you that careful?
Where the bank is involved, we are very careful. So which is why we do the valuation, and the valuation is just not on the the shell of the house.
Yes.
It's on the property that the house sits on as well. So we will do as such. Is it appearing on the Ndungu report, for example?
Okay.
Is this grabbed land? Is it swampy area? The valuer is able to unveil that. So if that comes up at that point, we will tell you we are unable to progress because of this. This information has come up on this property.
Okay.
We are unable to progress. We advise that you step back on it and identify another property. We've had very, very few situations where customers say, I'm happy to progress, I will pay in cash. You know? So, I mean, we give you the information as it comes to us via our professionals, and then you make the decision. But as a bank, we will not progress because, remember, anything can happen. The bulldozer stories, right? So anything can happen. So as a bank, we are very, very careful because remember, we are putting in money that does not belong to the bank, and we need to be able to get that money back. So we are not playing when it comes to that. We have to do due diligence.
No loopholes. Yeah. I mean, it's really refreshing to have had this conversation this morning and just, opening up and seeing then what does it really entail. And anybody can come in and have a conversation with you. And, look at, it's great because no hidden charges. We're saying no
Fixed
penalty
interest
for paying early, fixed interest for the term of your loan, 105%, financing for this mortgage, and it actually could be yours. So today you can email mortgages@dtbafrica.com and get the information that you need. Eva Retemo, the head of mortgages at DTB, has been our guest this hour. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Look forward to forward conversations. Don't forget, Eva, to have your moment with Delamere.
Going for it right away.
Asante sana.
Thank you so much.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the News Wire. I'm Leah. Ubagaland's Cabinet Secretary Alice Wahome has said that by the end of this month, the government will have provided more than 4,800 affordable houses for citizens. In a project she mentioned as helping citizens live in affordable homes, Wahome said that after every 3 months, the government will be providing more than 5,000 houses in the affordable housing project. Wahome said that the taxes deducted from citizens' salaries to pay their affordable homes are not for buying houses but are used to build affordable homes, so Kenyans will pay to live in those houses.
I would be releasing 4,888 by end of March. 4,800, and every quarter I'll possibly be releasing between maybe 4,000 and 5,000 every quarter. I'm looking at, maybe the question is the 140,000. What is the plan? Most of our construction period for each project is between 12 and 18 months.
And a parent of a Form 3 student at a secondary school in Suna, West Migori County, is seeking justice after his son was allegedly assaulted by one of the teachers and sustained injuries. The Lana is said to have been bitten over photos he took together with some of his fellow students during a sporting activity last week, Saturday. The student's father, Julius Abich, said his son suffered serious injuries that have resulted in blood oozing from his nose since yesterday. Abich said he reported the matter to Pini Oye police station before he rushed the son to hospital, where he's still receiving treatment. A U.S. national who ingested several pellets of cocaine in his bid to traffic them from Alabama to Saudi Arabia is recovering at Nairobi Hospital under police watch. That is a Nairobi hospital and not the Nairobi hospital. The suspect was taken to the hospital by his friend and was admitted for examination after exhibiting symptoms of excessive drugging. A doctor at the hospital alerted anti-narcotics detectives from DCI headquarters who visited the facility to witness an endoscopy process on the suspect. It was then discovered that 3 pellets were recovered from the suspect's rectum, which tested positive for cocaine and weighed 57.998 grams, valued at 1 million Kenya shillings. Now, members of Ford Kenya in Bungoma County have staged a peaceful protest in the town in what they claim is a plot by some government leaders to oust Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula. Carrying placards, the members said Wetangula was elected as the Bungoma senator before the president asked residents to allow him serve as the speaker.
Kura ambayo ilipigwa kutoka Bungoma ndio ilipatia William Samoei Ruto kuwa rais wa Kenya.
Na ukikuza Weta umekuza sisi watu wa Bungoma.
Kwa President William Samoei Ruto, Weta alikuwa amechaguliwa na watu wa Bungoma kama seneta wa jimbo letu la Bungoma. Baada ya kupita kura, ukatuomba ukasema sasa nipeni huyu seneta wenu niende na yeye aende kufanya kazi ya usipika.
And in the international scene, Israel and Hamas will begin indirect negotiations on a second stage of the Gaza ceasefire. Khalil al-Hayya, leader of Hamas in Gaza, said the bodies of 4 hostages, including those of the Bibas family, would be returned on Thursday. 6 living hostages would follow on Saturday. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office confirmed a deal was reached in Cairo to secure the release of 6 living hostages on Saturday, 4 deceased hostages on Thursday, and 4 more next week, but stopped short at naming any of them. Pope Francis has the onset of double pneumonia, the Vatican said, complicating treatment for the 88 pontiff and indicating a further deterioration in his fragile health. Francis has been suffering from a respiratory infection for more than a week and was admitted at Rome's Gemelli Hospital on Friday 14th. The Vatican said in a statement that the Pope had undergone a chest CAT scan on Tuesday afternoon, which had revealed the onset of bilateral pneumonia that requires further pharmacological therapy. Bilateral pneumonia is a serious infection that can inflame and scar both lungs and makes breathing more difficult. That's the News Wire. I'm Lea Ubaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Are you a young person looking to unlock your potential? Are you ready to take the future in your hands? If so, then listen up. KCB to Jejiri is the plan. It's designed to empower young people like you, develop skills and knowledge you need to succeed in life. KCB to Jejiri combines vocational skills training, business development training, access to finance and business mentorship, preparing youth for jobs, entrepreneurship and wealth creation. Don't be left out. Visit kcbgroup.com/foundation to learn more.
Running a business in Kenya and struggling with slow, expensive cross-border payments? With Verto, you can send and receive money globally, faster, cheaper, and hassle-free. Pay suppliers, collect payments, and expand internationally with ease. 49 currencies, 190 plus countries. One powerful platform. Better rates. Faster settlements, secure transactions, global payments made easy. Sign up today at www.vertofx.com. Verto, your global business payments partner. Medical emergencies don't wait for payday, so why should you? Picture this. You or a loved one falls sick. The hospital bill, sky high. The stress, overwhelming. But with Jubilee Health Insurance, you don't have to panic. Affordable health covers from just 200 shillings per month. Lipa pole pole. Get covered now. Pay in easy installments. Access to over 800 hospitals plus telemedicine and free drug delivery. SMS Health to 40643. Call 0709 949 000 or visit www.jubileeinsurance.com. Jubilee Health Insurance. Your health, your peace of mind.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
8 after 9 o'clock into the final hour of Kenya's biggest conversation this Wednesday, going down into through towards the end of the week. Okay, we're going to have an Africa conversation, and Tito Olai already is in the studio with us this morning. We're going to get into that in just a bit, but CT, we just heard about mortgages, and you're going to tell us about them again later. But then also let me tell you that there are 1 million people that get into the job market every year.
Yes, they are. And
what happens to them?
Well, they're predominantly young people, because some of the older fellas are actually already in the job market, or the job market left them at some point. But these young people have something that is a consistent thread that runs through their lives. Many of them have some qualifications, but they lack the requisite skills that you actually need to be able to contribute effectively to building the economy of Kenya. Now, KCB Foundation came up with a very interesting plan and a program. It's called the Tujiajiri program. And what they've done is not only skill you, but they tool you. What do I mean by this? The only way somebody who has some ability and has proven that they can do some work gets to a point where the value add makes it possible for them to actually make money in the marketplaces when they have a little qualification that's written on a piece of paper. And the institution that provided it called TVETs. Now, what KCB does is they bring that link together. People apply, when they qualify, that's the link. And beyond the tooling, meaning if you sort of like want to be stonemason or you want to be a carpenter, they will give you some tools. If it's a hammer you need, that's what they'll give you. If it's nails you need, they'll offer you some basic tools. Then in addition to that, if the business seems to have sort of like gotten some grounding, they offer financing as well, so that you're able to continue your business and in addition, get other people employed.
Fantastic. And that's how it works. KCB Foundation, Tujiajiri program?
Yes.
Okay. We get it.
It works.
It does.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Do you run a small business? Do you run a medium business? Do you run a large business? And have been struggling with how to make payments from country to country? Well, Veto FX has the answers for you today. You're worried, okay, so if I now make the payment, will it reach before March? Will there be hidden charges? Will I have to now sort out these exorbitant fees that come with having to move money from one currency to the next? Well, Veto FX says, you know what? They have a solution on a platform which says 190 countries where you might be doing business from business to business, sorted. 49 different currencies, so you can help you on the platform change from one currency to the next, sorted. Have this money or make payment towards those businesses in very short periods of time, sorted. Issue of hidden fees, sorted. Issue of exorbitant, prices, not sorted. All of that will be handled on the Veto FX platform. So businesses, small, medium, large, have been doing business and being able to keep seamless transactions flowing. You can find out more information about that on www.vetofx.com. Tito Olai is a Pan-Africanist and he's with us in the studio today. It's always nice to rub shoulders with fellows, let me just say. So good morning to you and Karibu Sana to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Morning. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here today. We're going to be looking at the continent and its trust crisis. There seems to be an issue and we see the symptoms, hitting us right in the face. But before we get to that, CT is in one African country this week. I mean, he's physically here, but he's in another country because that's where the proverbs are coming from. So he's going to tell us what that proverb is, and then you can tell us how you would interpret it.
Okay.
We are in the Republic. I'm calling the Republic of Niger. Not Niger, Niger. Niger is the river, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, the interesting thing about the river Niger is this. Like many other rivers on this continent, they play an extremely important role in connecting countries. Because the rivers don't just run through one country, they run from one country. So you could argue that whether it's the Limpopo River, whether it is the River Niger, these rivers, the real Pan-Africans, because they actually traverse the continent and they connect the continent to itself and they connect the continent to the rest of the world, because all these waters tend to flow to some other bigger water body.
That's beautiful, CT. I've got to give it to you. That's beautiful. You should write it down, patent it.
You're happy?
I'm very happy. I love the way you did that. I love the way you did that, man. I'm with you every day. I'm with you every day, but you come up with some gems sometimes, and that's great.
Sometimes.
Well, okay. I can't tell you everything is wonderful every time.
Siti, can I dilute it?
Yes, please.
I know it was a good mood.
Yes, please dilute it.
But you said that the river is the true Pan-African.
Yes.
It got me there.
Right
we will join a few countries in the continent if we wouldn't reach that whole amount that really is the dream of the Pan-Africanist, is it? So, yeah, it just hit me. Did I dilute it? I diluted the moment.
No, you actually enhanced it. I like your idea of dilution. This is good.
Okay, so the proverb.
Only God can chase away flies from a tailless cow.
Wow.
It's the ball is in your court, Tito.
The ball is in my court.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, it's music to my ears. It's from Niger, a country I know quite well. I've been to Niamey a few times. The Niger River is one I've been on the shores of. So I really buy into what you're saying. Because these rivers are cross-border. Unless we make them into borders like between Kinshasa and Brazzaville, which are the same city but kind of divided by a river. By a river, and also brought together by a river.
Yes.
So now, but dealing with the proverb first, that's a tough one. So only God can keep away the flies from a tailless cow.
Yes.
Wow, that's a hard one. But let me take a stab at it. I would suggest that it speaks to taking care of people who cannot necessarily take care of themselves, because the function of a tail is one of its functions, and for those who have fly whisks and things like that made from cow's tail, so of course that's the function of the tail of the cow, to swat away the flies. And a cow that has no tail, then how does it keep away the flies? I suppose the rest of society, or God in this instance, is the one that can be relied upon to swat away some of the problems of the less fortunate.
How would you apply this to everyday life, Tito?
I would be more empathetic to those who don't have a tail to swat away flies.
Those who don't have
metaphorically speaking, they don't have the
means to deal with everyday problems.
Correct.
Like flies.
But they can be taken care of.
But they need to be taken care of.
They need to be taken care of, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. I mean, for sure, that makes sense. And even as we can apply that to the continent today, that there are those situations that absolutely need to be taken care of, especially when somebody needs a leg up. But we're seeing a very, very different kind of conversation that has evolved over the last couple of days. And of course, we can look at the whole AUC election that took place. Again, we remind ourselves that there was not just one election. There were actually other positions that were being brought in on the day. But then we also see so many things around the continent, don't we? We saw that the African Union had sanctioned a number of countries over coups that happened within those countries over the last couple of years. So they did not take part in the vote. We have also seen that there have been conflict-ridden areas for decade after decade, whether we want to look at Sudan and South Sudan, whether we want to look at DR Congo, and not just the eastern part of it, but other parts of it as well. Whether we want to look at the western belt of the continent and what we've seen there, insurrections that we see in the Horn, we want to look at uprisings that we see in the southern part. I mean, take your pick. We can find it. But here we are saying that all of this is based on an issue of lack of trust at some level. Those are things that have happened in the past. Those are things that are happening presently, and then things that we see coming into place. With what we see of RSF then wanting to form a parallel government and announcing that on the shores of Big Brother Kenya. What are we seeing happening in the continent today, and why does it point to lack of trust, Tito?
Thank you, Ndu. Let's dive straight in. I think a lot of the... I don't pretend to be an expert in everything. You know, coming in from JKIA on a Bolt. Find a young guy, and of course you start discussions as one does, and you find that he knows economics, what people should do. He's an expert on leadership. He's an expert on commerce. He's an expert on the US. He's an expert on global geopolitics and everything. And you say, wow, these Kenyans are, they know everything.
You know their stuff.
Yeah, they really do know their stuff. But as you go along, the one thing that I found the guy doesn't know is how to drive the bloody Bolt. Which
Or
is his
focus
job.
when you're going.
So, yeah. So I'm not going to say that I know the intricacies of African politics, but it strikes me that a lot of the societal ills that we discuss are symptoms of a deeper malaise. Yeah, and so what you've been talking about, things like conflict, things like inability to come together, and stuff like that, are problems, but it doesn't strike me that they are the real problem. They're symptoms of a deeper problem.
Absolutely.
And to my mind, this is trust is a universal human thing. It's like love, it's like faith, and all these things that are universal. But in the case of Africa, it is a bit more significant because when you read any of these studies that are churned out, there's a trust barometer and stuff like that that guys do, kind of do, more or less to rank regions and countries on the lack of trust or whatever. You'll find that once again Africa is at the wrong end of the league tables. Yeah, we are kind of towards the bottom in terms of trust. The development industry calls it a trust deficit.
Yes.
But that leads us to ask, okay, then show us who has a trust surplus. So that might not really capture what we are trying to talk about. Much as it enables us to compare and say, well, there are some societies that are more trustful. They trust each other a bit more. And in Africa, it strikes me that we don't. So, why are we homing in on trust as a key? It might even be the real disease we need to focus on rather than the symptoms. Because when you talk about anything, everybody blames everybody else.
Of course.
So we'll blame the leadership will blame us, we'll blame, we'll blame all sorts of things.
External
powers, everybody else is to blame except ourselves. But it strikes me that trust, really at the end of the day, we have a crisis because we don't trust our institutions. I dare say our institutions don't trust us. Even private sector institutions. Today I had to part with my with my ID just to come and visit you guys and give away my phone number. Because I'm not trusted. Who are you? What are you coming to do?
Where's the genesis of that mistrust? Because we have mistrust, and then you get to the place where it's even worse, and you get to distrust.
Yes.
But there must have been a straw that broke the camel's back. We did have situations whereby rulers, authority, were able to commune with their people without too much of an issue. What the authority said, was what was done. And the choosing of this authority came from within the community.
Yeah.
We chose our leaders from who, which we still kind of do today.
Yeah.
But at that time, the trust barometer was still pretty high.
Yeah.
So what happened that would have lost that? Because what you're talking about is mistrust across levels. Citizenry, we don't trust one another. There's no trust between citizenry and leadership. There's no trust between leadership and institutions. I mean, take your pick, throw a stone, it'll land on something.
Yeah.
Where did it start from?
And even as you add to that, and because even in our African communities, we had kings. It wasn't such a big deal. All these dictatorship issues wasn't such a big deal. There was a king; he was respected. People trusted. He had the best interest of the people. Going back to what Africa was at the time, where did we miss it? Where did we lose it? And so much that we started to mistrust or not trust each other?
Okay, so much as I've said, we shouldn't blame people and all that, but honestly, what you've said is true to the extent that African communities, we are a communal people. We were built around families, around clans, around that sort of thing. And before the colonialists arrived, your word was your bond. Is that right? I think so. I wasn't there, but that's what I know.
Oh, but it still is. You see, even before the advent of the written word, as we now know it, human beings communicated.
Yes.
And when you hear of folklore, when you hear of oral traditions, these are the means by which we sort of like archived our history, archived our culture. So when people speak and they say things, it represented the truth, and people were held accountable to the things they said.
Yeah.
Yes, it was not even complicated.
Yes.
Yes, and there are communities to date on this planet who function on that very premise. That's it. Yes.
So then one of the ruptures, if you'd like, is the arrival of the Mzungu with a piece of paper and telling our chiefs, of course, induced by a few trinkets, told, sign here. This is what we've agreed. And people sign these things, not knowing that the people they're dealing with don't necessarily operate the way they do, right? And so, to cut a long story short, we end up with a continent that is divided, that was balkanized, where decisions were taken in Berlin, not a single African in the room. But that's the genesis of our boundaries. I ask myself whether these boundaries that we have today are relevant anymore. And credit to the institutions, the Pan-Africanist institutions that are trying to bring to life this vision of the OAU forefathers, which was, why don't we operate as a united continent? Why do we have barriers to trade, barriers to movement, barriers to anything, barriers to even communication, because we've now fallen into this trap of saying, you're Anglophone, you're Francophone, you're Arabophone, you're Lusophone, and all that stuff. We've ended up with a mess, and I don't think it helps us with trusting one another, because these are just reasons to distrust one another. And some of those issues that you mentioned, Ndu, are because we've embraced some of these colonial boundaries instead of erasing them. So that's one of the things. But I don't think this trust problem is only it manifests at a macro level. It even starts with us. Yeah? It starts even at family level. That fathers don't trust their kids, the kids don't trust the next generation, we don't even trust. I mean, you can't even do business with your cousin, because you say, you can't send remittances to somebody and say, please build for me that house, and you manage him by WhatsApp, because you know what will happen. So it's a big deal. And we haven't even discussed things like fake degrees, which I saw was happening the other day, that these days you can no longer trust somebody who comes, applies for a job, and you say, show me your credentials, academic and all, and he produces things, and they're just made up. So how is a society that has this sort of trust crisis going to do anything meaningful? Because honestly, we are very brilliant people as Africans, individually. The issue is, can you do anything of scale and significance working alone?
How do you show one nation to another? Because we can take it at the national level. One nation to another, obviously there is a trust deficit here. And it mirrors what used to happen before, because I keep saying that let's look at something like the slave trade. Let's look at something where resources were taken from one place to another. There was the facilitation of that movement, whether it was of persons or commodities. There was a facilitation of that movement by us, by Africans. there was an element of that facilitation by us. And I think that we still have a hangover of that.
Mm-hmm.
That there are people who made money in African countries who are Africans because of the facilitation position or role that they played. And I think that there's some hangover of that we're still experiencing today. Because why would we, in an election that is essentially supposed to put somebody in a position that would guarantee that the unity of the continent is forefront, is foremost, that we still have the kind of conversations that we're having today about split the union in half. Let us have North African Union and South African Union. Let us say that certain nations will pull out of the Rex.
Yeah.
Where would that come from?
Actually, you're right, Lou. What exactly are we hearing, really?
Yeah.
Because, and if we are hearing it, who exactly are we hearing speak?
Who is saying it?
Yes.
It's not the Mzungu who is saying it. Who is saying it today?
Yeah, the reason I was flinching when you were saying that we facilitated it ourselves is because I've come to be very skeptical of what I read. Because anything written is an interpretation by whoever feels that they're in a position to write about it. Problem we have is that we don't write, by and large. We as Africans.
Okay.
We just don't write. The number of books published in the UK in a given year is more than the number of books published by all African countries put together in 10 years.
True.
So it's not our thing. We don't write.
So
but the sad thing,
we tell stories.
we just talk from morning to evening. We tell stories. Yeah, we're just telling stories, and
but I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. I think the manner in which we today are using that particular tool is not as glorified as a written book is.
True, but what I'm trying to say is that it's fine. But the problem comes that we believe the written word because of the way we've been conditioned to believe the written word. So you're reading stuff, you're believing it, we don't even have critical thinking. We were not taught to think critically. We were not taught to read a book and then asked in the exam to tear it apart.
Is it?
We were not. So we are just imbibing all these things that we read. When the Mzungu says, you guys, it's your fault that slavery happened. You facilitated it. Your leaders sold it.
Actually,
how do you know that that's true?
All right.
You say it's because you read it.
No, even forget the reading aside, Tito.
Yeah.
If you remove the Mzungu, the Mwafrika, the Asian tag and look at human beings and how human beings function, think, work, and how across continents human beings have related to each other, how we've governed each other, there are very many similar threads. Okay?
Yep.
How it is leaders were chosen, or how it is they chose themselves, and what it is that they did, and what it is that people consider to be values that leaders must have. All these things were also conditioned by time and space. Okay? But the values don't really change over time because human beings don't really change. Now, perhaps the thing that the Mzungu, if I go back to the Mzungu concept, understood better than us is how to learn from others and adapt and adopt. The Asians have taken it a notch higher. We have never bothered with it.
Agreed.
So people learn from us and become better.
Yeah.
We stay.
Yes.
Other people who are not there learn from these other fellows and then make it even better, and we actually find that their societies are much improved. And yet the knowledge base was actually this continent at some point.
Yeah.
So the question I would ask is, what is it about us and learning the right lessons that would actually propel us forward? Because we do learn, but we seem to learn the wrong lessons.
Okay.
Because if I look at the leadership that we have on this continent, some of them wonderful people, when you look at the time that they are sent to positions of authority, then it's a downward spiral from then on. And you wonder what on earth happened to this person. Now, if you look carefully, there are those who say it is interference. And where I now agree with Tito, that narrative, I have declined to accept it because you have a choice as to what you accept and what you don't.
Yes.
Okay? It's like in this country when we complain about our politicians and saying, and then our politicians complain, and then you hear the executive being blamed.
Yeah.
Nonsense. You have been given authority and a mandate, which is sovereign, and you sell your birthright. How can it be the problem of the executive?
What would you expect to happen?
If indeed they bought it, they are buyers. You didn't have to sell, but you sold it. So how do we blame them for something which you have done? And it's the same thing that bedevils us as a continent. It is a lot easier to blame other people who are not quite with us for everything that happens, and yet it is us who keep bringing these things upon ourselves.
CT, I couldn't agree more. I think whether it's by choice or education or laziness or whatever it is, the fact of the matter is we have disempowered ourselves. We feel we lack agency. Every time we wake up in the morning, we are just saying, oh, I wish God would come and solve my problems.
Let's
I'm
pray
praying,
fast.
because I can't solve my own problems. And, I wish the leader that I'd put there to do this. Oh, why can't the government do this? Oh, why can't this guy do this? Why can't this guy? From morning to evening, morning to evening. That speaks to a belief that you're powerless. You have no agency. You have no drive. You have no self. You can't even wake up and say, today, I'm going to solve my problems. It starts at an individual level, and then at a family level, and then at a society level. Now, the issue is, again, is that the problem, or is that a symptom of the problem that we are discussing today?
Okay.
It's a symptom.
It's a symptom.
I know we're taking a break.
Yeah,
but
attacking. Let's just take a break.
Okay.
Attacking the problem and then coming to look towards the symptom. Let's do that when we come back from this. Tito Alai, Pan-Africanist, is joining us in the studio this morning, and we're looking at the trust deficit, the trust crisis in Africa. It seems to be attacking at every level. Do you trust me, Tito?
Up to a point, yes.
Up to a point.
You think you trust me? Okay. If I tell you that in this cup of yogurt,
yes,
there's a strawberry yogurt,
and it's
that there's real fruit in it, would you trust me?
No.
Why?
I would have to see with myself, because
beautiful, and that's what I want to give you.
Belief
is very good. Now that's what I want to give you the opportunity to do. And Delamere says you can have a moment where you take a break from your studying, where you take a break from your work, whatever it is that you do. Pop it open, have a taste of that, and you'll actually taste the real fruit. Then you come back tomorrow and tell me how you do trust me.
Okay.
And you can have a moment where you relax with Delamere.
Thank you, Ndu.
Sawa sawa.
Sawa sawa kabisa.
Let's take a break on that note. Right. CT, what did you want to, when he tasted?
Why is he thanking you and it is me who gave him the yogurt?
I facilitated. Do you see facilitation? That thing we talk about.
I'm wondering.
You to trust.
Okay. You handed over.
And you can take that to the bank. And one group that is actually making that happen is the KCB Foundation today, where under the 2G program, 1 million people are making their way into the job market without the skills that they need, sadly. And the 2G program is saying, okay, let's connect the dots, guys. Let's make sure that you can get the skills that you need so that you can get to a job that you would love, or start a business that would then help you along in the future. A 6-month skills program, and then a toolkit thereafter with much needed credit to start a business or to get a job in many parts of the country is what the 2G program is doing. Over 150,000 young people between the ages of 18 and 35 have been facilitated to date, and the numbers keep growing. Find out more information about how you can connect and clicking on that on KCB Group /foundation.
Some days just have you feeling, you know the ones. Very few aha moments. Just moments. Maybe even a few Because how can a day this good feel so meh? But then, you realize your moment of escape is a cup of indulgence away.
Delamere. Get lost in rich, creamy, flavorful bliss with every spoonful of Delamere real fruit yogurt. Indulge in the moment.
Running a business in Kenya and struggling with slow, expensive cross-border payments? With Verto, you can send and receive money globally, faster, cheaper, and hassle-free. Pay suppliers, collect payments, and expand internationally with ease. 49 currencies, 190 plus countries. One powerful platform, better rates, faster settlements, secure transactions, global payments made easy. Sign up today at www.vertofx.com. Verto, your global business payments partner.
Free.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, at 20 minutes to the top of the hour, Tito Alai is our guest this hour. And we're looking at that trust deficit, or trust crisis is actually what we're saying, that there's a problem that we have to deal with as Africa. Anki?
You know, I'm just here and I'm so glad I'm sitting next to someone who is a Pan-Africanist, but I do realize that there's conversations in this same continent that Pan-Africanists are not even one to start with, those who identify themselves as that. I don't know if Pierre Lumumba sat here and you sat here and someone from the Communist Party sat here. Are you sure your ideologies would align? Or is it true that there's some sort of, different ideologies within the same team of people who speak Pan-Africanism? Because I don't think that was the dream of Kwame Nkrumah and the rest of those who, hoped this dream will come to pass, including, I don't know if Marcus Garvey is one of those. But where are we with this Pan-Africanism journey?
Yeah.
And the ideologies, really? Do they align?
I believe that they do align. I am a Pan-Africanist because of what I read in school. Things like Things Fall Apart. People like Marcus Garvey, as you say. Even the writings of people like Malcolm X. People like Frantz Fanon, The Wretched of the Earth. And this is before I even had the good fortune to start traveling around the continent, and beyond. Now, the one thing that I would say that we need to do is to strip away all the English that we've had to use and the French. Because we are here now, we are Africans from the same country, but we are speaking in a borrowed language. Yeah? When I joined Frexim Bank, just when COVID was starting, there were 4 Africa Union languages enshrined as the Pan-African languages. You can guess what they were. English, French,
yes,
Portuguese, and
those African, yes,
Spanish.
Interesting.
Those are the 4.
Those are the AU languages.
And here I was going to start with Swahili.
I was going to say Swahili too.
No. Swahili came maybe 2023.
Well, I mean, Swahili was only in 2023 towards 2024 recognized as a leading language of the globe.
There you go.
Just 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
But here we are we speaking Swahili?
No, we are not.
Much as it has been recognized as a leading language of the globe, the guys who's recognizing this thing when the Swahili phones are not using the language. We are not investing in it. We are not developing it. We are looking down on it. We are saying it cannot handle scientific concepts, that African languages are limited. And yet, where's all our effort and money going? It's going into foreign languages. So, that's one thing I want you to hold the thought. But let me not run away from your question.
Yes.
Which is to say, is this Pan-Africanism thing, is it one? And do everybody who are taking the thing and say, I believe in Pan-Africa,
including President William Ruto, Raila Odinga has been called as one.
Exactly. Yes. I think we are all Pan-Africanists. And one of the values, CT was talking about values. I think we've got to begin there. Because I was in China one time. I was being hosted by the MD of one of these telco companies. And on the final, it was like a 2-week trip or whatever. But we got friendly. And towards the end, he asks me over dinner, he says, I've not been this close to an African before. But Hannah asked you a question, which has been at the back of my mind. And he says, I said, yeah, shoot me. He says, what are you Africans about?
Okay.
So to buy time, I asked him, yeah, an excellent question. That's a very good question, sir. But just so that I know that I'm answering your question, how would you answer it if I asked you, what are you Chinese about? So that I answer the question.
Yes.
So the guy says, for us it's easy. 3,000, 4,000 years old. It's very easy. In fact, I don't need a sentence. I'll give you one word. We are about balance. That's what all this Confucian thing is all about. At the end of the day, we boil it, sum it up as balance. That's what we are. Over to you. What are you Africans about?
I hope you didn't say imbalance.
I came close, but what what I came up with under pressure was to say we are about diversity.
Oh, that's a very good answer.
Yeah.
I thought I tried under the circumstances.
Diversity.
And why am I saying diversity? Is because do not believe all these writings that say Africans speak different languages, they're just dying to kill each other. That they have, in fact, they say tribes, which they don't use in their own thing. And there's a clash there of values because you're coming from a continent where hegemony is the thing. The strong absorb the weak or exterminate them. Let's say what it is. And you end up with a monolithic culture that's hegemonistic. And if you're not buying into that, then you're killed off, right? Now, African culture is not like that. We speak the most number of languages per capita. And we are just jostling happily side by side. We adopt some lingua franca, some practices. We just, we are not killing each other at industrial scale. If there's a bit of a tiff, there is, but honestly, Africans are tolerant of each other. They're tolerant of difference, tolerant of diversity. One of our virtues is hospitality. The further a visitor comes from, the more you're going to kill the chicken and the goat and whatever when you guys don't even eat these things. So a visitor has come. He doesn't even speak our language, right?
Like we just offered de la mer.
They just offered de la mer, which
you enjoy.
Is fruity. So,
I told you.
But these are the things.
Tito, you make a good case. You see, the understanding a problem is at the heart of how you can solve it.
Yeah.
How do we even begin thinking about coming up with a workable solution?
Yes. Yeah, I thought you might put me on the spot there because we discuss problems. I think as Africans, we are among the best at analyzing our issues, debating them, defining the problem, assigning blame, and all that.
Yes, it's almost
what we are not good at is solution.
It's almost an end unto itself because we are a debating society.
Yes. So we like to, but when we are very eloquent at this.
But when we debate about solutions, do we debate about how it is we can actually make them real?
Absolutely. How is it a solution if it is a theory?
Yes.
How is it a solution if it is a framework? How is it a solution if it is a strategy?
A structure.
Or even a blueprint.
An act.
Yes. So we are hiding behind all sorts of very laudable concepts and clever words. What we are not doing is we are not doing what we identify as the solutions. For instance, if we say we are going to grow our economy by manufacturing things.
Yes.
And then, as we say that, we say, there are a few people manufacturing things, but those are local. We are not going to consume them. How are we solving our own problem? We know that people have to get employed. We know that they therefore have to make some things. But we're saying making it is one thing, consuming it is another.
It's another.
So we've got so many of these issues. And let me now get to the grips with what the question is, which is, if we've defined the problem as a trust crisis, and it's a trust crisis because it is at family level, it is at community level, it is at regional level,
yes,
it is at national level, it is at intra-African level, it is at international level. How do we solve such a huge problem? My solution to put forward is that we can do it. We are doing it. Let's start with the case of Kenya, where we've recognized that in this fast-changing world, some of the most practical solutions that we can apply to our societal issues is leveraging the latest technologies that we can find. I've seen this through my career because I started dabbling with technology with Aisi Makatiani, Africa Online, where we were trying to bridge the digital divide across Africa, and there we were. We're not only talking about it, we're actually doing it. Pan-African ISP in the early days. We tried that. And then when I joined Mo Ibrahim's outfit to commercialize mobile telephony, it was at a time when even prepaid billing did not exist because everybody came from a telco kind of background where you received a bill at the end of the month. You could not access a telephone service if you're not creditworthy. And this is what was going on. And therefore, the penetration of even fixed line phones in those days was very little. I think in Kenya it was less than, there were less than 500,000 lines, really. And that was the same across all Africa. How, if you're, and this is where actually we don't give ourselves credit as Africans, because there's a lot of innovation that has actually come from Africa and from Africans.
True.
But because we have this culture where if you're a clever kid, it's very bad form to go and blow your own horn. You rely on the community to say, Mr. Muga's son he's a very good boy. He's doing very well. But what if they don't? Then you still don't shout about your thing. But this thing is about African culture. We are not as bad as, say, the Far Eastern guys who will never say anything nice about what they're doing. But if a pipe bursts in the factory, the group CEO will call a press conference and we will be weeping and apologizing and threatening to resign and all that stuff. So there are a lot more, if you get what I mean. Their culture is even more reticent of self-praise than ours is. We are not at the scale of say, the Western guys who say, you read a CV from somebody from America, you just think that this is the greatest guy. They don't even have the experience, right? If you compare them with an African one.
Right.
What I wanted to say is this. The prepaid platforms, the prepaid solutions we enjoy now did not exist when we started rolling out mobile phone services. If you came to a Celtel shop in Kinshasa or wherever, you line up, you pay your $10, we open the switch for you, you go and you consume it. When it's over, you come back, you line up. If you go to the vendors, Ericsson and Nokia and whatever, and say, we need something. We don't have, these guys, we don't even know any credit. We don't have credit histories. Say, there's no such thing as a prepaid billing system. So we had to work on it. So that's the genesis of this thing of pay as you go, because we're a cash society. Guys are living on just whatever. Without African effort, these innovations would not have come to.
Explain. What do you mean?
What do you mean without African effort?
What I mean is, if we have been conditioned to think that there's something called Western technology, there's something called Eastern technology, there's something called Northern technology, then I think we are mistaken, because as Siti was saying, technology is just technology. It's everybody building on the bank of human experience and knowledge and incrementally improving it. Unfortunately, we've conditioned ourselves to believe that we cannot grapple with technology. We cannot produce technological solutions from Africa.
Tito, let me ask the question.
So, yeah.
The case you make is a valid case. We have a trust deficit, and the deficit is among ourselves and in our abilities. What do we do? Specific question.
Specific.
How does technology help?
Help, yes. Right now.
Yes.
The technologies that can help us overcome the trust deficit is digital certification.
Explain.
And by digital certification, I mean, and this is why I was saying I was still waffling on about technology and all that stuff.
No, you waffled
but
well.
Now,
yes.
But what I'm trying to say is this. We've got to take the latest breed of technologies. Here's cryptography, right? Where you generate a unique digital string of characters that is unique, that cannot be copied. Yeah? And you assign it to a given person or a given artifact. Which means that it cannot be counterfeited. Right?
But it is.
And then you apply this.
Just pause. It is created by someone.
It is created by a machine.
Well, who's handling the machine?
No. I'm taking it. That's the question. And the machine is created by someone.
Of course.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So this digital thing that you mentioned first.
This is it.
So crypto falls into that category.
Cryptography falls into that category because it is a way of generating a long string of characters that cannot be copied, it cannot be recreated, it cannot be regenerated. Once it's generated, that is it.
And how many people would have access to it?
Yes.
By nature of the fact that we see things operating on this continent in the way in which they do, how many people would have access to that to understand it from end to end and then be able to partake in its development?
Okay.
How do you rebuild trust?
Yes, this is the issue. This is the issue. That, for instance, let's start from the applications of this kind of technology, the cryptographic techniques, before we even then start throwing in other things like blockchain and what does that mean and all that
By
stuff.
the way,
So cryptography.
You have 2 minutes to explain this.
Actually, yeah.
Okay, we are done.
Yes. No, just 2 minutes. Don't worry.
2 minutes.
Yes, we can always invite you again to come and expand.
Yeah,
but
of course.
for now, you have 2 minutes.
So I have 2 minutes.
Yes.
So this digital string of characters,
yes,
which we call a digital certificate, can be assigned to someone. So you can then have it as your digital identity, actually your digital signature. Yeah, let's start with digital signature.
Okay.
That if you're assigned this string of numbers, and it's only assigned to you, CT, yeah, you cannot disown. The minute you said you've pressed on your device or whatever, that I agree, and it's come from you, you cannot run away from
it.
So that's the essence of it.
This one, requires more time to explain.
It does, definitely. We need to interrogate and pick and pick and prod, because at the end of the day, we're saying that there are certain institutions we don't trust. There are certain institutions that don't trust us.
Exactly.
There are levels of government that we don't trust, that do not trust us, and this is across the continent.
Correct.
And we need to start to pick away at the solutions, because if we don't, we're going to be a lamenting society forever. But and we can't lament. We must solve.
Right. We must solve.
And this goes beyond the humanness of things that brings about the problems that we have.
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed.
And I think this also comes to shaping mentalities and, reshaping our mindsets.
Yes.
Titola, thank you so much for being here this morning. It's and so, like I said, do that and then, give me a call and tell me.
Well, get
for
a spoon
sure.
and
you get a
tackle.
spoon and go with it. Moments with Delamere. Thank you for being part of Kenya's biggest
Thank you very
conversation
much.
this morning, and looking forward to having more conversations with you. Thank you all for tuning in on our live streams and across other platforms and being with us this morning. Keep it SpiceFM through the day, and looking forward to more conversations as we get into the day. God willing, we'll be back here tomorrow at 6 a.m. Asante sana. Good morning. Heading round to 10 a.m.
Spice up your life